pretty eye. Goddamn. Goddamn. Sooner or later, I'm gonna have a goddamn pretty eye me take though.
Damn, take it to another show for pretty eye.
I can't deny her though. She's my bestie. She's my bestie. That's my bestie. Your pair of eyes had me paralyzed. Toxic nigga, but you made me to a better guy. Smoke, but with you on forever, ever. I can watch you all day, girl, like you televised. You think like this nigga, they ain't never lied. I left the bitches alone, I had to pick a side. Look in your eyes, girl, you were hypnotized. Of course, it was your breasts, hips, and them damn thighs. Close my eyes, I'm still mesmerized. Trying to get mad at my bestie, I tried. That's my bestie, my pretty.
I heard she's the one, she's got it going on. That's my pretty eyes, baby. Yeah, yeah. She don't take no mess. My bestie is the best. That's my pretty eyes, baby. Yeah, yeah. I heard she's the one, she's got it going on. That's my pretty eyes, baby.
Hey, what's up? So I'm going to do the first part of day 2 in the Jermaine Bass case. He is accused of allegedly pew-pewing his 2 kids, unaliving his daughter and his son, attempted unaliving on his son, and 2 counts of child abuse. So, yeah, and I watched the first part of it today. I mean, the first day of it today. Now, I'm watching the second part of the second day so I can catch up on it because tomorrow is the 4th day, I believe. And, yeah, so I'm trying to get there. So let me get this started here. Shh. Are they not going to speak or what? Play? Maybe. Nothing? Right there?
Everybody ready?
Yes, Judge. Just to the courts where we added 2 exhibits. I provided them to the defense. One is a body-worn camera by Deputy Creasy, and the other one is the phone call detail records, which they've had and they plan on introducing. Just for some reason I left it off the list.
Okay.
The only thing with the body cam is right now it's the 45-minute full body cam of Deputy Creasy, which we already had. We need to get their clip to be able to see what's on it first. I think they're working on that.
Yeah, it's being clipped right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also have photos that we've shown to defense that you don't have an objection to, that will be added to the back of State's Composite 22 as 22FFFF.
All right.
Yep.
All that accurate?
Correct, Judge.
Okay.
The only additional thing is that there was one issue with the lettering of one of the exhibits. There were 2 22 DDDs and there were no 22 triple K.
Yes.
So that was readjusted and we did that this morning.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me change this.
All right.
Are they starting or what are we doing here? Come on.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this call will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You said this right.
Good morning. If you would please introduce yourself and spell your name for us.
My name is Robert A. Durr III. My last name is spelled D-E-R.
Thank you.
Mr. Durr, how are you employed?
I'm a crime scene investigator with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been working as a crime scene investigator with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
Almost 18 years.
And what are your general typical duties as a crime scene investigator with the Sheriff's Office?
So I respond to persons and property crimes where I document through photographs or other measurements possibly, and collect evidence as it relates to those types of crimes.
As part of those duties, do you from time to time attend autopsies as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what do you do when you attend an autopsy?
I take photographs and then I collect any potential evidence that might be located by the medical examiners.
And by potential evidence, you mean things like we take maybe clothing or objects that are removed from the body, things of that nature?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to show you what's already been introduced to State's Exhibits 28B. Just if you can take a quick look at those, and you can open it. They're already open, so you can go and just see. In this particular case, or do you recognize those?
Yes, sir.
And what are they?
They're the projectiles that I recovered.
All right, and so when you were at the scene in this particular case, you took photos
Yes, sir.
and you collected those projectiles?
Yes, sir.
Were you present when those projectiles were removed from the body?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you observed them take them out?
Yes, sir.
And so then do you photograph and document them being taken out?
Yes, sir.
And then you collect them yourself?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you can publish. Okay, I'm going to start with specifically 20A. Okay, and that in fact, you were there when that was removed from the body of Jermaine Bass,
Yes, sir.
and you observed them and you took photos of it and then you collected it and took it into evidence.
Yes, sir.
Now, besides that one projectile, did they also recover some fragments from inside Jermaine Bass's body?
Yes, sir.
All right, now I'm going to show you 20B again, which has already been admitted into evidence.
Something stuck in my eye.
I'm just going to show them this way. So they're very small, correct?
Yes, sir.
And these are in fact what is taken out of the body, and they've been described as fragments of a projectile. What would that be? What are fragments?
So fragments could be anything that separated off of a projectile. It could be where it was damaged or anything maybe split apart as it was injuring.
Okay, so this is most likely from the same projectile that came into the body.
I couldn't be specific on that, but
Okay. One moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Visual passwords.
All right. Press.
Good morning, Mr. Durr.
good morning.
Now, you did go out to the crime scene, right, and assist with the scene there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you didn't collect any evidence yourself.
That's correct.
And then you ended up being tasked with following up with attending the autopsy in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, routinely, when a body is received by the medical examiner's office, the hands are typically bagged. Is that right?
A lot of times, but not always. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And why are the hands bagged?
To protect anything that might potentially be on there.
And that is typical of what happens like at the scenes that you've been out in, where there's been a body at the scene that the medical examiner's office will
For
bag
DNA.
the hands when they're there.
Yes, ma'am.
In this case, when you attended the autopsy, was there any swabbing done of Jayla's hands?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay. And then sometimes GSR testing is requested by the detectives. Is that right?
Sometimes, yes, ma'am.
And in this case, that was not done.
Correct.
Nothing further.
Anything else? All right, you
Wow.
can sit down, sir. Thank you. He released from his subpoena.
Yes, Ms. Sage.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Call your next witness.
State calls Detective Clay Holman. Actually, Judge, can we call Cheyenne Miley first, please?
That's crazy.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good morning. If you would please introduce yourself and spell your name for us.
Good morning. It's Cheyenne Wheaton. I'm sorry, Cheyenne Miley. It was Wheaton during its investigation. I apologize. It's Shyanne. Last name Miley, Miley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please tell the jury where you work.
I work for Hillsborough. Sorry, can you hear me? I work for Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office as a detective with our homicide section.
How long have you been working at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
I've been with the sheriff's office for almost 8 years, and I've been with our homicide section for almost 3.
So on the night of this event, August 29th of 2022, were you working with the homicide department as a detective?
I was.
What part did you play in this investigation for why we're here today, the events of August 29th of 2022?
The lead detective, Detective Gabo, asked me to pick up some additional video surveillance from a residence near the incident scene.
What residence did you go to?
It was off Heritage Club Drive. The numerical, I believe, was 13937.
Okay, and I'm showing you what's already been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 6, but I want you to look at it. Do you recognize it?
I do.
When you went and you pulled the video, help us understand what process do you go through when you're pulling a video from a surveillance camera that maybe has a residence versus maybe a business?
Well, I meet with the resident, confirm that we're allowed to view their video, obtain their video, at which point she did say that she was willing to provide the video with us. I checked the date and timestamp on the live video with what I have on real time. So whether that's me checking my phone or my watch, and ensure that the date and timestamp on the video surveillance is in fact correct.
So when you went to this residence in Heritage Grove Apartments and you looked at the video surveillance at the timestamp, compared it to your phone, what did you find out?
I saw that the date was accurate, but the time was about 1 minute behind real time. So if like the time right now is 9:33, so the time on the video surveillance was showing 9:32, just for an example.
The videos that you pulled that are on what you've seen and identified as State's Exhibit 6, does it include the relevant time frame from the entire incident?
Yes, it is.
I don't have any further questions, Judge.
No question.
Dang, they're
You
like
can sit
going
down.
through
Thank
these.
you.
Thank you.
She released from her subpoena.
Yes, Judge. Cheers, Judge.
All right, thank you. Call your next witness.
The state calls Detective Clay Holman.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Morning again. If you would please introduce yourself and spell your name for us.
Yes, ma'am. The name is Clay Hobelman. First name is Clay, C-L-E-Y. Last name is Hobelman, H-O-B-E-L-M-A-N-N.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Tell the jury where you work.
I work with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
I have worked there over 14 years now.
What's your title now?
I'm a detective of the Sheriff's Office.
Were you a detective on August 29th to August 30th of 2022?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
At that time, did you have a specific unit or department that you were working at?
More broadly, I'm assigned to Criminal Investigations Division, and then more narrowly, I'm in the homicide section.
Help us understand, as a detective in the homicide section, what are your duties?
We investigate a number of different cases, exclusively
Oh, back up off the mic.
homicides, as the name would suggest, but we also investigate cases that include any natural deaths through suicides, overdoses, and then we have a couple other assignments that we will assist on if they're kidnappings. So we do a broad range of things, and then we will also cover for other criminal investigation units as well to assist in their investigations.
During a homicide investigation, is there just one detective that's decided to be involved in the investigation, or are there multiple?
Generally, we have no less than three for three specific and designated roles, and then we may also have other detectives assisting those primary three roles.
Explain to the jury so that they understand what is the purpose of having at least the three detectives involved in each homicide investigation.
Those three roles are going to include your lead detective, who is responsible for a majority of the activities or requirements for the investigation. You have your assist that is working in tandem with your lead investigator. And then you also have a scene detective or scene investigator whose responsibility is managing the scene and understanding all the facts of the scene, and then working with the lead investigator throughout the remainder of the investigation.
When you are a detective working with the homicide department, do you typically perform one of these duties of lead, assist, or scene at every single homicide that you go out to, or does it differ?
Yes, in every one of those cases, at least those three roles are assigned. As individual detectives, we may be assigned one role for one investigation, and we may shift to a different role for another investigation. But at least those three roles are always covered in every assignment or in every investigation that we go out to.
So since you became a detective in the homicide department of Custer County Sheriff's Office, have you had occasions where you were the lead detective?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you also had occasions where you were the scene detective?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in this case involving the defendant Jermaine Bass on August 29th and August 30th of 2022, tell the jury what your role was in this homicide investigation.
I was assigned as the scene detective.
When you say scene detective, I understand you just explained that it was walking around documenting the scene. Let's get into the more detailed part of what exactly you do. So let's say you're called out to a scene, you're given the role of scene detective. Walk the jury through what you generally do when you are assigned to be the scene detective for a homicide.
So the scene detective is responsible for, first and foremost, the scene, the location where the incident is happening, as well as any secondary, tertiary locations that might be included. It might include vehicles. It's essentially everything that is going to be a physical portion of the investigation. Generally speaking, our scene detective is responsible for. That can include writing all of the search warrants for those physical locations or addresses. That includes the searching of those locations, and that includes the documentation, both collection of evidence, as well as documenting through photographs, taking photographs, overseeing that the proper photographs are being taken.
So I understand that at a homicide investigation, there's at least three positions that are assigned. But is it safe to say that homicide detectives are generally
Your
not
sides
the
are
first
too
people
high.
to respond to, for instance, shots called that call that comes in to 911?
Yes, that's fair. Generally, deputies are going to be our first responding units coming to that call to kind of assess what is happening there and make a determination as to the additional investigation that is required. And at that time, then phone calls are being made to request either homicide come out or special victims units come out, whatever detectives might be an assist to that investigation.
Once homicide detectives are sent to an investigation scene, are they first apprised by the deputies of what they saw when they first arrived?
Yes, usually to some extent there is some foreknowledge of what is happening at a scene or what has happened or has been observed. It may come through deputies, it may come through supervisors, but generally speaking, when we do arrive at a scene, we have some idea of what has been done at the scene or what we may be facing at the scene.
Based on the information that you're given, when you first arrive to a homicide scene, does that information and what you're told affect some of the decisions or the direction that you're documenting or your investigation of the scene? Does that information affect the decisions you make at the scene?
Yes, I would say it does. I think that as one of the responsibilities of the scene detective, you're not only doing that documentation and trying to get an overall objective understanding of what may have happened there, but you're obviously going to be contrasting the information that you're getting. First, your initial information of what is coming through your dispatch call. Secondly, your information that you're getting once you arrive to the scene and talk to your deputies or you're talking to some of those supervisors. And throughout the investigation, our scene detectives stay in contact with the lead investigator who's out doing their interviews, who's out collecting video surveillance, and is getting a working knowledge of what's happening outside of that house. And they are in constant communication with the scene detective to try to determine what things might be of special importance or value within that residence.
When you became involved in the investigation of this case, were you given information by other deputies when you arrived about what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
What were you told?
We were told that there...
Its effect on the listener, Judge. He explained that he was given information at the scene, and from that information, he makes certain decisions at the scene of what document and what not to document.
Well, I have no idea what was said at this time, so sustained.
Can we approach the bench to confer, Judge?
Sure.
after you received information about what the other deputies saw or heard when they first arrived, what did you decide to do next?
For this investigation, I collected information from the deputies that were there at the scene and used some of that information as well as some observations we were able to make just from the outside of the residence to complete a search warrant for that residence.
Explain to the jury what a search warrant is and what it means.
A search warrant is a document that we use in an event that we may be recovering evidence from that location or from a person or from a general area or even potentially from a cell phone in which we think that might be evidence of the case and of which somebody may not be willing or voluntarily wanting us to enter into that location or enter into that cell phone device. For a search warrant, we need probable cause, which is essentially a probability that there is evidence in that location, be it a phone, be it a residence, that we would need for our investigation. We use a combination of our own observations as well as observations of other fellow deputies or detectives to put information into that document explaining why we feel that we need to go into that residence and collect evidence or potentially collect photographs, anything that may be of value for our investigation. That has to be signed by the state attorney's, or excuse me, approved by the state attorney's office and signed by a judge saying, yes, you're allowed to go into that location to do whatever you need to do for your investigation.
So in this investigation, you obtained a search warrant. Did you search the entirety of the townhome involved in this case?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
So after that, did you begin documenting the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, as a part of documenting the scene, are you, as a scene investigator or detective, are you responsible for actually taking the photos and actually placing the evidence markers, or do you work with someone else to help you do that?
We work with our crime scene investigations department or our CSI department.
Now, in this case, did that include crime scene investigator Shannon Bader?
Yes, ma'am.
When
Stop
you
doing that.
first walked into the townhome, what did you see of relevance when you first walked in? And I'm putting on the Elmo 22A.
Within entering the residence, the door opens inward and we come into a foyer area that has a kitchen just off the side of it. Beyond that, there's a dining room area. And then a little further beyond that, there's a TV area or an entertainment room, I guess, or living room space. On that location or at that location is a black couch. And we noted what we believed was going to be some blood on the edge of that couch or the side cushion of that couch, as well as a small metal item that looks like a clasp or a toothed clasp. That, just based on my familiarity with them, looks like the kind of clasp that's used to secure an elastic bandage or an ace bandage with those little teeth that kind of bite into the fabric.
Now, once you go up the stairs, what's the first bedroom that you see up on top of the stairs?
The first bedroom you come to when you are ascending the stairs is going to be what we determine is the children's bedroom.
Now, states 22R and facing on the elbow. Are we looking at the top bunk in 22R, or are we looking at the bottom?
This would be the top bunk, ma'am.
Okay, we're looking at the back of the photo. You can see a sticker that is on the wall right about the middle that I'm pointing to right here. It's a yellow sticker labeled damage A. We see another sticker labeled damage B. And we see another green sticker, which we see labeled red substance. I want to specifically talk about damage A and damage B. What wall are we looking at that we're pointing to where damage A sticker is labeled on? What is on the other side of this wall?
On the other side of that wall is going to be a bathroom.
Now, I'm placing, one moment, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get the photos out of order, but I can't make any promises. I'm placing 22Z on the elbow. Tell us to the right over here, what room is this? You can see like a small, maybe what, a quarter of an inch opening. It looks like it's going into a room. Explain to the jury what room that this is going in.
So the darkened margin on the right side of your photograph as you're looking at it is going to be the darkened space just because of the lighting at that time of the children's bedroom or of the kids' bedroom, where that same bunk bed we just saw in the previous photograph is located.
Once we're inside the bathroom that's depicted in 22Z, I'm placing 22AA on the Elmo. Is this a closer up image of that exact same wall? And am I correct in pointing to the yellow marker on A1 to the right? It's labeled damage A1. Is that the same wall, the back side of the wall, belonging to damage A?
Yes, ma'am.
And for reference, I'm putting back on the Elmo 22R. The Elmo is a little fuzzy, if you can give it just a minute. So the damage we're seeing right here in 22A your testimony from what you saw. It goes through the wall and exits in damage A1 that we're seeing on 22AA on the right over here.
Yes, ma'am, that is our belief. There is a space in just a normal construction space between those two walls. But yes, it would appear based on some other continued observations that we make once we get to A2 and A3, that that's going to be one continuous trajectory of a projectile going through the wall.
Now, you explained earlier that you were working with the homicide unit as a detective for quite some time. About how many times at the time of this incident had you been assigned to be a scene detective?
Probably in excess of 25 or 30 times for scene.
Okay, and during those 25 to 30 times, or other times that you've been called out to a homicide investigation, have those before included gunshots going through drywall?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had an occasion in these prior scenes that you visited to notice the shape that a gunshot may make when it's going through drywall?
Yes, ma'am.
Describe for us the shape of 22R, where we're looking at damage A.
It would be.
Well, sorry. I was specifically wanting to ask you, based on your training and your experience, the significance of the shape of the
There's
damage.
one over there too.
depicted in this photo.
With this photograph, we're seeing a rounded shape as it goes through the wall. When you're seeing the clean edges, generally speaking, that would refer to an entrance or the round coming from this side of the wall, penetrating into this wall. I think you can see slightly from A1, it's a little rougher, and that's because as it starts to come back out of the wall on the opposite side, it's pushing that material in front of it, so it fragments as it's coming out. And you'll see either the wall being pushed out in that direction, or you'll see it's a little bit rougher around those edges as the edges of those are pushed out.
The damage in A1 depicted in 22A that we see on the shower wall. You just mentioned if a projectile was going through the wall, you may see the sides of the shape made in the wall be pushed out slightly. Am I understanding that correctly?
From the exiting side, yes, ma'am.
And let's see, 22BB, I'm placing on the Elmo. Describe for the record what we're looking at in damage A1, specifically around the shape that you notice.
So this would be what we believe is the corresponding exit from the A damage or the initial A damage. And you'll see where the paint is kind of chipped as that force is pushing that out. And we'll start pushing portions of the wall out with it as the bullet comes out of the wall or would be exiting from the wall. That's a hallmark of what we would typically see with that. It's not impossible to be reversed, but this would generally speak to us as this being an exit of a projectile coming out through the wall.
Now, when you're given information, when you first arrive to a homicide scene about what may have happened or may not have happened, as part of your duties as a scene investigator, are you looking to see whether or not the forensic evidence or the physical evidence at the scene either match up or don't match up to the story?
Oh,
that
this
was
is
told
killing
may or may
me.
not have happened?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, we're looking at 22C, image 18. It looks like we're in the same shower that we've been talking about, our bathroom that we've been talking about, that is right next to the children's room. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is this shower curtain also depicted in, or part of the shower that's in 22Z that we've been using for reference? If you were to walk in to the left, would you immediately see what we're looking at in 22Z, the shower?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Now, tell us what you notice about damage A2. Specifically the shape.
It is somewhat rounded, at least for a portion of the side. The upper, as we see in the photograph, the upper and then the right side of that damage or defect does appear to be rounded. And then there are, you can't see it in this photograph specifically, but you can kind of start to see it. There are subsequent holes behind that, or pieces of the same plastic shower material behind that, as it would appear a projectile continues on its path through the shower curtain.
We're looking at on the model 22D. For reference, we see the same damage A2 that we were just discussing in the previous photo, but we also see it slightly blurred on the tile, a damage A3 on a yellow sticky label. Now, I'm placing 22EE. Tell the jury what is significant to you based on your training and experience about the shape of damage AE in the shower.
Damage A3 appears to be the termination of that projectile going through the wall, impacting the tile of the shower, and then embedding itself in the tile or the substrate that is below the tile. And that's what we're seeing kind of centered in that damage there, is the backside of the projectile or bullet.
Just hang tight for one moment. I'm referencing one specific. Now, during your investigations as a scene detective, at some point during certain investigations, does it become important to take measurements?
Yes, ma'am.
Help us understand in what situations do you decide to take measurements, and what situations do you decide it may not be necessary?
Most all of our collected items are going to have some measurement to them. You'll see many of these stickers that are being photographed have a scale or have a measurement already on the sticker that helps us understand if it's next to something, what the size is that we're dealing with. If it's something that we find of specific importance that we're collecting, we may do additional measurements of it once we get back to crime scene and have a more controlled environment. But generally speaking, several of our areas that are photographed will have some sort of scale to them. It's not necessarily to give you a specific measurement as to the width or the diameter of the bullet, but it is giving you some context as to how big this portion of damage is on the wall.
I want to talk about trajectory rods. Yesterday, we were introduced to the idea of trajectory rods. Tell us why, in certain cases, you may use a trajectory rod.
A trajectory rod is just a tool that we're using. We have to have two solid areas that are either impacted or traversed by a bullet for us, or projectile, for us to be able to use a trajectory rod. We have to have a point A and a point B that we can pass that rod through. Generally speaking, when we do have bullet damages, we are getting some rounded areas that it's going through, as we've kind of seen through this evidence. And then the trajectory rod allows us to pass a straight implement through those holes and now look at the directionality of where that rod is pointing. Generally speaking, if we're looking back in the direction of where we believe the bullet came from, we can get some idea of where the gun would have had to have been positioned or pointed and aimed at that direction. And somewhere, if you were to draw out where that rod is pointing, somewhere along that line, a gun was pointing in that same direction and firing that bullet. Which
Objection, outside the scope of this witness's expertise.
Overruled.
You can finish.
Somewhere along that line is going to be the passing of the bullet through the same location where the rod is.
Now, I'm placing on the Elmo, let me move these first. I'm placing on the Elmo 22JJ. You see in this photo the bunk beds and a measuring tool. Are we looking at the top bunk here, or are we looking at the bottom bunk here?
This is still the top bunk, ma'am.
How tall is the topmost portion of the top rail of the top bunk?
It's measured at 5 feet with the large red 5, and then 5 inches with the smaller white in the black background 5.
So is it safe to say that I'm
That
understanding?
blood, that's so
This
sad.
tall portion of the top bunk is 5 feet, 5 inches.
Yes, ma'am. The very tippy top of the rail, so to speak, would be 5 feet and 5 inches from the floor.
And to orient the jury, we see in the top left a green sticker that's placed on the wall. And on the photo, it's to the left of the measuring tool. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yes,
On the
ma'am.
front right here.
Yes.
I'm placing on the Elmo, it states 22R. Is that the same? And for the record, once I've placed 22R in the Elmo, I'm pointing to the left portion. There's only one green sticker on the wall, and I'm pointing to it right now. Is that the same sticker that I'm pointing to in 22R that is apparent in 22JJ that we see to the left of the measuring marker?
Yes, ma'am. That would be the same sticker.
Okay. Based on your training and experience, the fact that you were at the scene, I'm placing 22RRR on the Elmo. And it's fuzzy. Let's give it just a second. In 22RRR, we see damage A that we've referred to before. Knowing that the topmost portion that I'm pointing to on the left side is 5 feet and 5 inches, can you confirm, because you were there, damage A is at least 5 feet, 5 inches or higher?
Yes, ma'am. That would be accurate.
Now, I see a green pole that is extending in this photo out of damage A. We've talked about trajectory rods before that help the jury understand. The green pole that is extending out of damage A.
That's not
is
green.
that-
It's fucking white, isn't it?
I'm placing on the
Looks white.
Elmo 22LLL. This is labeled
You mean LLL?
damage A1. And just to orient all of us again, there's a lot of A's, A1s, B's. We determined A is in the children's room above the bunk bed, at least 5 feet, 5 inches high. Now, where are we for B or for A1?
Now we're on the bathroom side of the wall, so opposite or the adjoining wall from the bedroom. And this is a measurement of that what we believe to be the corresponding damage of A1.
So Based on the measurement that is in the photo, we have a measuring tool placed to the right of damage A1 that we see. What is the measurement or the height of damage A1 in the children's bathroom?
I would put it between 5'5" and 5'6", somewhere right in that area.
Now, before, when we looked at damage 22 RRR with a green trajectory pole poking out, the corresponding same green pole, 22 LLL, is it the same green trajectory pole?
Yes, ma'am, same rod.
Specifically, I want you to explain to the jury the significance of 22 RRR. I want to draw your attention. Let's give it a second to focus. Looks like it's... Here we go. The trajectory rod, the green trajectory rod, protruding out of damage A, explain to the jury the significance of the angle that we see portrayed in this photograph.
Given that we're looking at the wall from what we have interpreted as the entry point, we're dealing with a slightly downward angle. And that angle, for the purpose of this photograph, would be from a left to right
I'm
angle.
going to object again to this witness outside his knowledge and expertise.
Overruled.
You can answer it.
It was essentially answered. It's a downward angle and slightly left to right as it's seen in this photograph.
So based on the trajectory rod,
So it's like
is the angle
this.
traveling at a downward angle or an upward angle at the point in which it enters the wall marked by damage A?
It's traveling at a downward angle.
Just like the other ones like this.
22 LLL. I'm placing on the Elmo we've looked at before. We determined the same trajectory rod in damage A is depicted here in damage A1. I want to draw your attention to the angle of the trajectory rod depicted in this photo. I want you to explain the significance of the angle of the trajectory rod depicted in this photo.
It's still traveling at a downward angle.
So the level, so then I want to place on the Elmo 22 MMM. To orient us, we're looking at the shower curtain with the marker damage A. Is that 2? A2. I see a measuring tool to the left of A2. Tell the jury, and I'll actually zoom in a little more because it's kind of hard to see the defect for the whole of damage A2. What is the height of damage A2 that's depicted in this photo on the shower curtain?
We're looking at just a little below the 5-foot mark.
So let's say
4'11" and 5 foot.
4'11", right between 4'11" and 5 foot.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you testified before that, and we can see, I'm placing back on the Elmo. 22 JJJ. I'm giving the Elmo a minute. Where we are using for reference the 5 foot, 5 inch height.
They're still not answering my question. I got questions. Are you sure it was him? I mean, the wife was in the house. The little boy was there. You have shell casing. I mean, yeah, you have bullets in the in a bag in the kid's, whatever you call it, the kid's closet with a 380 freaking holder, a belt clip. I mean, it just seems all odd. How do you know for sure it was him? Can you please answer me this? I mean, yes, we get the scene. We understand the scene, but tell me how you come to the conclusion that it was him.
Of the outermost, tallest portion of the bunk bed. Then I'm placing 22 RRR, where it shows, and we've determined that damage A is higher than that 5 feet, 5 inch measuring marker of our vantage point right here, the pole that I'm pointing to over on the outermost corner.
Get to the
You previously
investigation.
testified that the trajectory pole shows a downward trajectory in the photo that we're showing here. And we know 22 LLL, you explained, was also showing a downward trajectory of the pole. Is the measurement in 22 MMM that I'm placing on the Elmo consistent with the trajectory being at a downward angle coming from the wall, damage A1, to the shower curtain, damage A2.
Objection just again, and ask for continuing objection to this witness giving his testimony.
All right. The objection's overruled. You have a continuing objection. Next line of questioning.
You can answer.
Yes, it would be consistent with the round still descending or being in a downward trajectory as it is traveling towards what we can pretty easily identify as its terminal point where it's embedded in the wall.
Now we're looking on 22NNN, placing it on the elbow, where we see damage A3. Next to damage A3, we see a measurement tool. Tell the jury, what is the measurement from the floor, the height of damage A3?
It's between 4'10" and 4'11". 4'10" being kind of the bottom margin of that, where the grout is for that tile, and then 4'11" being the top edge of that damage. And we would expect the actual penetration to be somewhere probably in the middle between 4'10" and 4'11".
Comparing the height of damage A2, that we've determined to be about 5'11" and a half or so.
Or 4'11".
4'11", excuse me. I was looking at the number 5. You're correct. 4'11" of damage A2 and a half or so.
Still
to the
don't-
height
It's still
of
not
damage
answering my
A3,
questions.
being slightly below that at 4 foot, between 10 and 11, it kind of encompasses the whole inch there. Is that consistent with the trajectory drawn that we saw in damage A and A1 to be at a downward angle?
Yes, it's still downward or still descending.
I'm placing on the elbow.
I mean, okay, I shouldn't have this many questions in day 2. I should start, getting somewhat of a feel of an understanding. I'm not. I'm really confused. I don't know. There was the whole family there at the house, mom, dad, and the 2 little kids. How do we not know the 8-year-old son didn't? And I hate saying that. I really do. But it would be the parents' fault because they didn't put the weapon up and they didn't lock it up and they didn't keep it away from their kids. Like that you should be responsible, especially when you have kids. It's our responsibility as parents to protect our children and make sure that nothing in harm's way gets in their hands. So I'm just curious. I really am. I'm just so curious. I don't know if it was the son that accidentally, I hate even saying that, or the mom. I want to know how they arrived at him, it being him. He's the only one. He's the only one that could have done it. I want to know how they got to him because it's not making sense for me yet. Yes, the little boy was also shot. However, when they first ran into the house, he said that he was trying to get the magazine out and accidentally, he could have been disarming his son. He could have been disarming his wife, and it accidentally, went off. In the midst of all that, a whole bunch of chaos. But how do you arrive at him? Just because he made some erratic statements? Sometimes people say erratic things when they're going off. Okay, especially if a parent, I would be taking all the blame. You get what I'm saying? I would take all the blame because whose responsibility is it? It's my responsibility because I'm supposed to make sure that I protect my child, or I'm supposed, as an adult and a decent human being, I mean, I would have to protect anybody I come in contact with as a little kid. Like, too many of little kids are getting hurt. I don't like this. I just want to, but at the same time, like, to get real justice, the real person needs to face the consequences. And as far as I'm concerned, if they don't come to the conclusion that it was him or something else happens, I want, the parents need to be charged both. I mean, the two child abuse charges on him, I would definitely go guilty for that because you left two a firearm in the reach of where kids could get it. And look at what happened. And manslaughter. I mean, manslaughter comes to mind. Involuntary, of course, because you're not the one. I mean, but how do you come to the conclusion it was him? He did it. He's the only one that could have done it. I just, okay. Let me go on.
022-000. The marker on the wall, is that damage A1?
Yes, ma'am, on the right side wall, in the photograph just above the shower towel holder.
On the shower curtain, is that damage A2?
Yes, ma'am.
And we can kind of see, it looks like there's over here, there's a cabinet on the wall, but sneaking out right behind the cabinet, it looks like we have another yellow marker that goes into the shower tile. Is that damage A3?
Yes, ma'am.
Explain to the jury the purpose of using the trajectory rod from damage A1 in the bathroom wall, to A2 in the shower curtain, to A3 in the shower tile.
To again show the path of the projectile as it went through the bathroom, or the likely path of the projectile as it's penetrating through the wall, going through the shower curtain, and then embedding in the tile. So this is a fairly accurate representation of what that path would have looked like.
You just used the word the path a few times. What is the path?
The path of the bullet or the projectile as it's going through the wall and then ending up in the other wall.
And what is the path? It's at a what angle?
The path and trajectory is at a downward angle in this instance.
Is this the same hole that we see in 22RRR depicted right above damage A?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Now, based on your training and your experience and your evaluation of the trajectory rod used in this investigation, what occurred from damage A to damage A1 to damage A2 and to damage A3?
I think this has been asked and answered, Judge Everett.
Sustained.
I'm placing on the Elmo 22R to reorient us. Are we looking at the top bunk or the bottom bunk?
Top bunk again.
I want to draw your attention to an evidence label entitled damage B. I'm pointing to it. It's the yellow label that's closest to the bloody mattress. What does that look like to you when you were first there and you first viewed it?
Our belief was that was also a bullet damage or a bullet impact location.
Looking at 22FFF, what are we looking at here? Well, hold on. Let me start out with a larger view of it. And then what's significant about this damage, specifically when you zoom in?
We believe, again, this is just a zoomed in or a closer up photograph of one of the preceding photographs of the same damage at damage B. We're seeing some blood in that same area, as well as some breaking of the wood on that framework. And towards the right, I would say the right edge of that damage, there's a little bit of rounded shape to that damage that we thought might be consistent with a bullet or a projectile striking that area.
Now, was that damage that's depicted in damage B what sometimes law enforcement would call a through and through, meaning that there's an entrance and an exit?
In terms of a medium before making that impact?
Correct. Like, is there a hole on the other side?
So for this area of wood, no, when we moved that rail away and moved the whole bed away from the wall, we did not see a corresponding hole coming through that piece of wood. So to us, it just looked like a fracture or a damage on the front side of the wood.
Looking at 22XX. Is this another view of the damage that you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
You can just have a moment. During your investigation, did you have an occasion to inspect both the top mattress and bottom mattress for places that may be of evidentiary value?
Yes, ma'am, we did that.
Tell us about your inspection of the top bunk mattress.
In this same general vicinity of where we're looking at now, near where the damage B is, we did find a defect or what looks to be a tear or hole in the top fabric material of that same mattress.
In the photo that we're looking at, 22XX, where was the defect that you noticed in the mattress?
It's close to the same area where damage B is, a little bit inset from the mattress, so away from the wall, but where one of the concentrations of blood is located.
Judge, can the witness stand up, please, to identify the area he's discussing?
Yes.
Please stand up and point to it.
It would have been in this upper portion of the mattress, just forward of where damage B is, or just up toward the purpose where you're viewing on the television screen, to the left of where damage B is located.
I'm placing 22D on the Elmo. Point to the area so the jury understands of what you're talking about where you noticed a defect in the mattress.
Can you zoom in a little bit, ma'am? The area of defect for this is going to be along or the same area. There's a splitting of kind of the foam in the mattress here. And that's part of where the blood was also, there's a little bit of blood that came through the mattress in that same location.
We're using the term defect, which feels like a more scientific term. In lay terms, what do you mean by the word defect?
A damage to it or a hole that is coming through it, some sort of tear or hole in the fabric.
Could that be seen from the top of the mattress before it's peeled up as we see depicted in this photo?
A little bit, yes. That was where we were initially drawn to the location of the hole or the torn area of the mattress from the top.
So you see this on the top, this torn area, and you decide to peel it up like we see depicted in this photograph, which is 22D. After seeing what you see depicted in 22D, what did you do next?
Continued to cut through that mattress to try to locate if there was an actual projectile somewhere in the mattress.
I'm placing on the Elmo 22E. What are we looking at in 22E?
Now we're looking at the same mattress, but with the entire top layer peeled back. So now we're looking at the interior spring arrangement of the mattress.
Is what we're looking at what you just described in 22E? Is this the same mattress depicted in 22D, where we see it peeled up to reveal the foam?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it the same mattress that we're looking at in 22X, which is the mattress depicted in this photo to be on the top bunk that has blood pooling and staining?
Yes, ma'am.
After peeling back to see the springs in 22E, tell the jury what you noticed.
A projectile was located within this space where the springs were.
I'm placing on the Elmo 22F. This is significant. Number one, what are we looking at?
We're looking at a zoomed in picture, kind of a continuation of the previous picture of the spring arrangement.
And I want to draw your and the jury's attention to, it looks like an item that I'm placing my finger to. It's kind of a semicircle portion of an item. What is that item?
That would be a projectile, ma'am, or a bullet.
Is that consistent with the damage or defect that you saw occurred in the foam that you described before?
It could be, yes, ma'am.
22G. I'm placing on the Elmo. What are we looking at?
That would be the actual recovered bullet or projectile, just held in a palm.
The recovered bullet or projectile that we're looking at in this photo, is it the same as the projectile that's depicted and that we just pointed out in 22F?
Yes, ma'am.
And the projectile that we just pointed out in 22F, is it found in the same area as the defect that you described in the foam depicted in 22D?
It's actually a little bit towards the opposite side of the mattress, a little bit further in to the opposite side. It is still the same mattress, but it is not directly beneath where this damage is located, but a little bit further away within the mattress or within the spring space of the mattress.
Can you stand up and show us?
Yes. It would be found kind of towards the top of the screen on that side of the mattress.
So help us understand. Do you believe, based on your training and experience, the location, and for the record, I have 22X on the Elmo where it depicts damage B, that damage B and the projectile found in the mattress depicted in 22G are related?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell the jury why you feel that way.
It was our belief that what you're seeing at damage B is going to be a deflection point where it is impacting or coming in contact with the side rail of the bed and then deflecting back in the opposite direction into the mattress and embedding itself through the mattress.
The lack of foundation and proper opinion for
All right,
PSB.
overruled.
You can repeat it because she was talking.
Where it's impacting the railing and then deflecting and coming back or ricocheting and coming back through the mattress and ultimately being located in the mattress through the space where the springs are located.
Let me just have a moment, Judge. I need to set these aside. behind the top railing of the top bunk bed, at some point you see another trajectory pole that is like a red or pink in color. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
One minute. During your investigation, did you have an occasion to follow the trajectory of that damage to the wall and determine what happened at that point of entry?
Yes, ma'am. As I recall, the initial entry into the wall is marked by B1. It clashes a little bit with B, but that was because at the time that we were investigating, we thought that B1 may be a continuation of the damage to B through the frame into B1. However, once the bed was removed from the wall, we realized there is no continuation or no hole on the backside of B. Therefore, B1 was identified as a separate and independent bullet damage to the wall, accounting for a different projectile.
And I'm placing on the OMO 22FF, we see damage B, but behind that on the wall, we see poking out a yellow evidence marker. Is that what you're discussing, that you thought that damage B and what's behind the evidence marker on the wall, you thought they were related?
Yes, ma'am, we did. The one behind it, though you can't see it, it's going to be the same one. That's going to be seen later as damage B1.
Damage B1, did you determine on the other side of that wall where that projectile landed?
Yes, we did. While there's not a punch through the wall with an actual exit hole, we do see a kind of conical shape on the backside of that wall where it looks like something impacted and it just didn't come all the way through the wall. So it struck the wall from the space, the voided space in between the wall, but it didn't actually go all the way through the drywall. It just struck the bathroom side of the wall.
And we're looking at 22QQQ. Damage B2 we see labeled on here. Is that what we would call the defect on the wall that you noticed that was related to damage B1?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Tell the jury about the different heights of damage B1 and damage B2.
Those would also be in a downward trajectory from where we think our entry point is on the bedroom side of the wall to where we see our impact point on the bathroom side of the wall.
I'm placing on the Elmo 22PP. What's the height of the damage of B2?
Can you back out just a little bit?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I didn't realize it was still so zoomed in.
So the floor is almost covered, but we're looking at 4 feet and somewhere again in between 9 and 10 inches. So 4 foot 9.5-ish on the bathroom side of the damage.
And damage B1, that would be depicted in 22F. Again, we're only seeing the very edge of the marker behind here, but just for reference, is this the same top portion of the top bunk that we've measured out as 5 feet and 5 inches?
Yes, the very top rail with a little bit of extra would be the 5 foot and 5 inches location.
I'm placing on the Elmo 22C. What are we looking at here?
Some poorly done demolition, and then that's going to be a projectile that was recovered from the wall.
Poorly done demolition. What? Yeah, usually they cut a square. They don't tear up the drywall like
After
that.
the search warrant was conducted, did you walk around the whole townhome alongside Shannon Bader and help direct her as to what needed to be photographed and what needed to be marked with the different evidence markers?
Yes, I wouldn't say that we're necessarily in lockstep as we're going through, but everything that is marked as evidence is either something that was noted by her or something that was noted by myself. And then together or in tandem, we will assure each other that we are aware of everything that has been marked as evidence.
Putting on the Elmo 22FFFF. This was a photo we did not have a chance to view yesterday. Can you orient us to what we're looking at in 22FFFF?
This would be a picture taken from the kitchen, looking at the edge of the kitchen counter. To the left margin of the photograph, you can see a table and chairs. That's the dining room table and chairs. To the right edge, I can point this behind me, but we're seeing the slim edge of what looks like a darker colored or brown door. That would be the front door in an open position.
So the front door is out on the first floor of this townhome that we discussed.
That's correct. This is the first floor.
Now,
What's that?
throughout your investigation and in your experience as a detective or a scene detective in a homicide investigation, help us understand, are you given parameters on what needs to be swabbed and what doesn't need to be swabbed for DNA purposes?
Let's go.
No, I think that's something that generally evolves as we're going through the investigation. There's no hard, fast rule for what does need to swab or what doesn't need to swab. Generally, we're doing an accumulation of different swabs for target areas, either heavily saturated areas. For instance, if we have what we perceive to be a trail or a series of droplets that start from A all the way to Z, we may take just some of the swabs along that way because we're demonstrating it is a path or it is something we can readily identify as a continuation of droplets.
It's
We
not
may
adding
swab at the
up.
first point, the last point, and one or two spots in between. So we don't always swab every single spot that we are seeing at a scene, and we don't always swab every single puddle that we see at a scene or pooling area that we see at a scene. But generally, we're swabbing or looking for areas that we think are of specific interest for the investigation.
When you decide what needs to be swabbed or what doesn't need to be swabbed, do you take into consideration the information that you were given by the responding deputies when you first arrived at a homicide scene?
Yes, ma'am, that's fair.
In
Hey,
this
Hood.
scene, when you arrived, did you ever become aware that there were any other victims other than the children, Jayla and JJ Bass, in this scene?
For trauma, no, we were not aware of there being any other victims.
Did you have occasion to inspect or look at the firearm when it was found during the execution of the search warrant?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And the magazine of that firearm that was found during the execution of the search warrant, did you take that information into consideration, how many bullets or projectiles it held when you were looking for things in the children's bedrooms, such as projectiles or casings?
For the totality of the investigation, yes, that was considered. The number of casings that were located in the bedroom, I believe, were found before we ever even found the firearm.
So when you are a scene detective at a homicide scene, you've used words such as projectiles and words such as casing. What's the difference between a projectile and a casing?
Projectile is kind of synonymous with bullet. It's the actual portion that goes out from the gun and strikes whatever it strikes. Our casing is the back portion of the entire bullet that is expelled from the firearm. In this case, if it's a semi-automatic, it's expelled out of the firearm and lands somewhere off to the side of where the firearm is at the time that the shot is fired.
So we're talking about things being expelled from firearms, and someone who may not have experience could get confused. Where does a projectile expel from a firearm?
When the trigger is pulled and the entire casing is ignited, the bullet is going out of the barrel, and then the slide is sliding back, and then your casing is coming out of the side. Generally speaking, most firearms are right side ported, so you're going to have your casing coming out of the right side. And generally speaking, again, most times it comes in a slightly backwards direction off to the right side. That is in a standard position of holding the firearm. Any variation of rotating the firearm or angling the firearm will cause that casing to come out at a slightly different angle.
How many total casings were found at this crime scene associated with this case?
We recovered 5 spent casings from the bedrooms.
How many projectiles were recovered at the scene of this investigation?
We recovered 3 projectiles from the scene.
When you're saying 3 projectiles, does that include things like fragments?
Include what?
Things like fragments.
In this instance, I don't believe we recovered fragments. I think every one of the projectiles we recovered was intact.
During this investigation, you explained to us before that you worked closely with the lead investigator and other detectives in the case. Does that include finding out whether or not any of the victims who were transported to the hospital or to the medical examiner's office had projectiles or fragments contained within their bodies?
We would eventually become aware of that. I don't know if we were aware of that at the time that we were working our scene.
How many other projectiles were recovered?
There was 1 other projectile recovered from autopsy.
From whose body?
From Jayla Bass's body.
Well, she's the only one that passed away, right?
May I have just a moment, Judge?
Yes.
I mean, she's got to be the one that passed away, so yeah. But why didn't you guys GSR hands? Why?
I can just have a moment, Judge. I don't have any further questions, but I've made a bit of a mess, so I'm going to try to.
Oh my gosh, lady.
Sure. I don't have any further questions.
All right, Cross.
Come on, lady. Ask the questions I need to ask.
That's fine.
All right, so how long have you been with the Sheriff's Department?
14 years now.
Alrighty, and a lot of your training for crime scene documentation is on the job, correct?
Correct.
You've done some outside presentations, but mainly you've received quite training during your years documenting scenes.
Correct.
Okay. I wanted to ask you first, you did in fact attend the autopsy, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You attended it with, I believe, CSI Durham?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, there had been some question, had there not, concerning Jayla Bass's hands being bagged. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And there was a question as to whether her hands had been bagged prior to coming to the medical examiner's office. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know about
And the
the
medical
little
examiner's
boy's
office,
hands,
based
though.
on that, contacted you, advised you it had not been done per your agency, and asked you if you wished to have any special processing done on Jayla's hands.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
All right. And you indicated to the medical examiner's office, there was no special processing requested and no plans to swab her hands, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when a witness gets their hands back, that's typically done.
Okay, I can understand like not testing her hands. Okay, she was the one that had three head wounds. So she was just shot 3 times in the head. The little boy was shot once, I believe, in the head. I'm the only reason why, like, I'm not getting guilt. I mean, to me, he's still innocent because I still have so many questions. This case is crazy. How come you didn't GSR the little brother's hands? And I hate saying that. I do. But it's the parents' fault to begin with for them to have a firearm in the reach of a child. But you got to test his hands. I don't hear you testing her hands, the wife's hands. And what about his hands? I don't know how you guys came to the conclusion that it was him. Because of one statement. Yeah, I mean, I can understand maybe he was wrestling the gun away from the little boy or the mom, somebody else, and accidentally shot the little boy. Okay, it would be involuntary manslaughter or and the 2 counts of child abuse. I mean, it'd be 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. I mean, it would be 1 count of manslaughter, 1 count of involuntary manslaughter. This is crazy. Tell me how you got. I mean, I get all the trajectory here, trajectory there, blah, 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 blah. But come on, do you know what the little, I mean, you guys say that the little boy and little girl were right next to each other sleeping when this happened. I want to know how you know that, because there are certain big blood sweat. I mean, there's blood spatter at the bottom of the bed, like where you would see, like if a shot happened on somebody and they get blood spatter. I want to know how you got to the conclusion, how the prosecutors got to the conclusion that they were right by each other. You have another big stain on the opposite side of the top bed. You have 2 stains over on the front or the top side of the bottom side of the bed. Then you have 2 on the top side of the bed. The pillow's all bloody, of course. And then you have a big old spot in it right next to it. And then that bottom, you have the blood spatter. Anyways, okay, all this CSI stuff is great, and I understand that, like trajectory, blah, 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 who bagged what, who did what. Okay, we've heard from like, I don't know how many other witnesses this testified to the same thing. Okay, we get a shooting occurred. But how do we get from a shooting occurred by him
on at the scene?
I think if we're talking about bagged hands, we're usually talking about deceased. But yes, I don't know that we bagged witnesses. If we bagged witnesses, we might be pissing people off. But yes, deceased, that's typically done at the scene if we're going to do it, yes.
I apologize, I misspoke. I said witnesses. So in this case, Jayla Bass's hands were bagged at the scene.
They were not bagged at the scene, no.
Hospital?
I believe at hospital, yes.
Okay, so when she arrives for the autopsy, her hands have been bagged.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And that bagging is to protect and preserve any evidence that might be on a person's hand, under their fingernails,
Yes, it can, correct.
Now, you don't have any contact with any civilians in this case, Mr. Bass, Mrs. Bass.
That's correct.
Why not?
Now, casing, since you've talked about firearms and casing.
Okay, why? See, this is you're a CSI detective. I mean, who did what? I get like you were at the scene, you collected all this stuff, but why was the mother not detained? That's another question I have. I think both of the parents, since both the parents were present, they both should have been detained. And had another family member go to the hospital for those babies. And I'm so confused. I am so freaking confused. I'm getting irritated. I'm getting frustrated. Like, you're in day 2 and it should be starting to paint a picture. It's not starting to paint a picture for me. How do you get that he's guilty? How?
You've indicated typically casings in a normal type firearm, semi-automatic that we're talking about. Typically, they eject to the right.
Correct.
In this specific case with the Glock 42 that we have, that's 380 caliber, do you know what side the port is on?
I believe it's on the right side, ma'am.
And the port's going to be the area in which that casing ejects from.
Yes, it's the opening to allow that casing to eject.
Now, casings are fluid. They can be moved around, they can bounce, they can be kicked around, they can fall in different places, correct?
That's correct, yes.
When we spoke to...
And let me give you a proper hi. Hey, Kevin, how are you doing, bro? Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. I know a lot of people aren't into true crime, but I love it. I especially trials, because, you know, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a CSI. You know, I don't know. Anyways, but some cases just frustrate me. Just this one's wild. This one is wild.
To you, you processed this scene on August 29th into August 30th of 2022, correct?
Yes, August 30th, correct.
Okay. And you had no idea that responding deputies had moved blankets from around the area of Jayla more towards the eastern side in order to retrieve Jayla. You didn't know about that till we told you in deposition.
That's correct.
Right. So you didn't know that at all. We advised you, let me know if this sounds accurate, about 1 year and 2 months later, October 17th of 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Freaky C, how are you?
At that point, when you spoke with us and we gave you that information, had you watched any of the body cams of responders?
No, I don't believe I had, ma'am.
Have you to this day, in the time you've had, been able to watch any of the body cams?
Yes, we've reviewed body cameras.
How do you get
Now,
that?
since the blankets had been moved by first responders, you cannot give us any opinion as to the actual location of any of the casings that were located on the top bunk, correct?
That's fair, yes.
Now, we did, in fact, have one casing on the bottom bunk, correct?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
And since deputies had moved the bedding, certainly a casing from the top bunk could have.
Which one, Kevin? I mean, he looks a little, I don't know. But the dad has been, he's been emotional. You can tell he's under a lot of stress. I feel bad for him, like, because I don't know the answer, you know? I mean, even if you did that to your child, how can you sit there and not have emotion over it? You know, how could you do that to a child to begin with? You get what I'm saying? But or how could you leave a freaking firearm unlocked where a kid could get it and possibly shoot his sister, and then when you're trying to either take it away or your wife shooting the baby girl, and then as you're trying to wrestle away from either one of them, trying to take the magazine out, and then you shoot the little boy in the head too, like that's what this is giving to me so far. So far, this is what that's giving to me. They have not proven that it was him that shot that little girl. I mean, the little boy, yeah, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it was him. How do we not know it was the mother? I got questions, but anyways, okay. This is why I could never be on a jury, because if I got more questions than answers, guaranteed, I'm gonna be not guilty all day long, because why? If you haven't proven the case, and I'm still wondering who did it, you didn't meet your burden for me, you know.
Fallen onto the bottom bunk where we saw it.
Yes, it could have.
Without opening either mattress, were any photographs taken of the bottom of either mattress, top or bottom bunk?
No, I don't believe, other than what is already captured just in photographs of the wall. No, there's no kind of holding the camera upside down, just take a photograph of the bottom, or once it was removed, I think all the pictures are from the top and the sides.
Okay, but Kate, can please, defense attorney, ask them how that blood splatter got on the wall down there if the shooting didn't occur down there. Can you please ask that? Because it's driving me crazy. It's driving me crazy.
To the mattress.
For both top and bottom bunk.
Correct. Yes.
Now we've talked about A, and A is, let's say this, a little more easier to travel or to follow than B was. Is that fair?
Yes, that's fair.
So, and the states already went over A with you. I'm not going to go back over A. I just want to go back over B a little bit. And bear with me,
B
please.
is like this, like at a diagonal, you know, like a diagonal way, diagonally down like that. And A is like this. This is just great.
So we have states 22 RRR.
Which somebody that
Probably
could
look
be
to this
sitting
photo
on the
with
mattress
Mr.
did that shit.
You recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So now we have the yellow evidence marker placed by Shannon Bader. It is labeled damage B, correct?
Okay, see right here. Okay, this is a pool of blood. This is another pool of blood where the pillow was that was saturated. Then they got blood all the way over here. Yet they didn't swab down here. They didn't swab all the way over here. Not at all. So how did they know that both kids were right next to each other? And then, okay, let me get back to this.
Right. And I think you indicated that you guys had thought something originally, but then you determined that was not correct.
That's fair, yes.
All right. So basically damage B was, and can we call it like a nick or so? What do you call it?
Just an impact point or an impact site, I would say.
Okay. So you originally thought, you and your agency thought, that damage B went through and through the top of the bunk bed into the hole that was behind the bunk bed, which is labeled B1.
That's correct.
And then you thought that that same hole or that same travel went to B2, which was in the bathroom and dug out of the drywall.
Kevin, no. So the little girl, yes, the little girl passed away. She was shot 3 times in the head. The little boy was shot 1 time. I don't know if it was, if it was a graze or what, or, I don't know too much about that because they really haven't brought the medical examiner in. Which I would have stopped all this hoopla about all these crime scene investigators. I mean, bring in the important ones, we should have this ball rolling. Like we should have already been into the lead investigator. We should be starting the lead investigator, the mom. I don't know if she's going to be a witness or not. But yeah, the little boy made it, but he has 2 attempted unalivings on him. And then, of course, the first degree murder of her. Anyways, and 2 child abuse charges, which I think the child abuse charges should be there. Okay, whether he did the shooting or not, I believe you are the father. You are responsible. You had a firearm, a loaded firearm, mind you, that didn't have one of those locks on it, wasn't in a lockbox. If the kid got to it, it was lying around somewhere where your kid could get to it, type of thing. So those should stick. If it's proved that but they still haven't proved who did it. Who did it? We have three possibles. But when the paramedics and the police first arrived and talked to the dad said it was an accidental discharge. So to me, I'm thinking he's wrestling the gun away from somebody, because everybody knows that it's not accidental if there's 5 shots, right? So, and he could have been saying it was accidental discharge because of the boy. The boy could have got a hold of it, and that's it. That's all. But he was trying to get the gun away and got him. You know what I'm saying? So the 2 child abuse charges, guilty all day long. Okay? The mom needs to be in there too. Guilty all day long. I don't care. You know, if it turns out to be the little boy, right? Involuntary manslaughter. Yeah. Both these parents, not just one, both. You both live there, and your son was able to get a hold of a weapon. Yes, involuntary manslaughter all day long. And this case is wild. It breaks my heart. No baby should be hurt. No baby should lose their life. If you are trying to go that route, there are so many families that want that baby. Give that baby to them. I mean, don't hurt them. Like, don't hurt them. You know, nobody asked to be born in this life. But the one thing, when we are here, I mean, we all should be able to live in peace and protected. And, you know, that was a precious baby. I mean, but prove to me that the dad did it. Just.
I think by the time we established B1 and B2 and broadened it, we realized it's pretty clearly not going to be the same as damage B. So I don't know if we ever got to assuming B2 might be an extension of that.
Okay. So B1 and B2, based on what you're seeing at the scene, you believe are clearly not a continuation of damage B, despite your original thought.
Correct.
And I know why he's blinking his eyes so much. It's because he's been tearing up. He definitely has been tearing up. He hasn't really been letting the jury see. But like as they leave, usually he'll wipe his face. You can see it really bothers him. I mean, he's under a lot of stress. And I don't know if it's because he's guilty. I don't know. I mean, I'd feel guilty if it was my kid and you know, or even if it was my wife, I'd still feel guilty. Like, why did I bring a firearm in this household if I knew this was going to happen? You know, I just think you got to be smarter. Got to be smarter, especially when you have babies. You can't do what you used to do back in the day. You have to think for them. You have to. I mean, you can live your life when they're grown. You know, that's one thing as all parents, we have to sacrifice our own life to raise our babies, you know, to give them proper, you know, love, protection, all that stuff. You know, we can have a life outside of that later. But being a parent first, you got to be protective, you know.
You said something, let me see if we can see it in the same photo. I think we can. You said something about damage B having what is blood, that there's some blood around damage B. Is that right? All right. Was that area swabbed above damage B?
I don't believe it was.
Why?
Was any sort of phenolphthalein testing done to determine that any item you saw of red substance above damage B was in fact blood?
No, I don't. If it wasn't swabbed, then I don't believe there would have been any pheno testing for it.
Okay. So when you're using the term blood, you're kind of assuming.
Presumptive, yes.
And it may very well be blood, right?
Right.
Okay. But you don't know. You can't tell this jury it was blood.
Right. I don't have chemical analysis to say that's blood.
When you were continuing now and you're finding that projectile related to B1 and B2 in the wall, do you recall any debris or blood from that projectile? It would be B2 that was in the wall. Any debris or blood that you remember from that projectile?
No, I don't recall seeing anything on it.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
sticking with B, you gave Miss Reader your opinion about that potentially a bullet hitting that B frame right here and going into the mattress where the hole is, correct?
Correct.
And over here, that is the area. That's the area in which the projectile, which has been fired, is found somewhere in the mattress.
Yes, in the area of the mattress below.
Did you swab there?
Now, can you tell this jury, since you testified to that, that that's what happened in this case?
Definitively, no, I can't say because I wasn't there to see it with my own eyes. We don't have video of that. That is an inference drawn based on the other damages that we see, and then the fact that we do have a projectile in the mattress.
Okay. So you drew an inference in your, is it fair to say your opinion?
That's fair.
Okay. That something hit damage B and then went into the mattress, but you can't tell the jury that's what happened.
Definitively, no. Correct.
And damage B, can you even definitively tell this jury that damage B occurred from this case?
I don't, based off of what we see with the blood, well, with what you're going to say is going to be the presumed blood, yes, it would be our thought that this is going to be from this case. But definitively, no, I can't say that I absolutely have knowledge of the condition of this frame before this ever occurred. That is a conclusion that is drawn from our investigation.
And it may very well be, just as I talked about the blood, but you're not telling this jury you can definitively say damage B occurred that night. It was shot that night.
Yeah, I don't have any foreknowledge of the, or a pre-existing knowledge of what the condition of the framework looked like.
Now, when the mattress had been opened up and Miss Reader was showing you photographs of the mattress, we could see the coils, correct?
Correct.
All right.
As well, yes.
And that's where you and your agency located a fired projectile.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when Miss Reader was showing you that photograph, and you know which one I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Or I'll have to sit through all the photos.
Yeah.
It was the opposite side that we should have been looking at. Is that correct?
The location of where the projectile is, that you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes, if you're looking at the mattress as it would.
Kevin, that's a good one. I wasn't thinking that. I was like, man, your fucking sides are too high, dude. I mean, come on. What's going on here? I thought the same thing. Anyways, yes, this is the crime scene investigator. I don't know if he's a homicide detective or not. I think he's just CSI. And we've heard from like 50 million of them already. Well, okay. We've heard from, he's like the fourth or fifth one. Like, we've heard enough from them. Like, let's get to the detective. Come on, chop, chop. But like all this presumptions and all this other dumb stuff, how do you arrive that it was the dad, though? Like, usually in the second case, like, I have some of my questions answered, but from the start of this case, I still don't have not a one answered, not a one. But yes, he's an investigator.
Would have been on the top bunk. It would have been nearer the front side of the frame, the open side, opposite to the wall side. So the defect or the damage that we believe is the entry point of that projectile is nearer to the frame where we saw B. The projectile is actually recovered nearer or on the opposite side of the mattress, away from the wall.
So it's kind of turned.
Yes, that was part of our conclusion of having impact. If it had impacted B and deflected or come ricocheting back, it's now coming in a direction back towards the direction it came from, and that's why it's located further onto the side of the mattress away from the wall.
Okay, so when I'm looking at that mattress, it's on the bottom bunk at the time that you guys are examining it and take the photos. Correct?
Yes, it's photographed on the bottom bunk.
But that is actually the mattress from the top bunk.
Top bunk, correct.
So when I'm looking at that, and in the lower right-hand corner where we can see it pulled back, where would that specific area have been in terms of the frame and the wall?
That area that is peeled back from the frame of the wall is right there where damage B is, and below the green marker that's on the wall, that saturated area that we see in that corner of the mattress.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that for me. So basically what we've done is we've moved the mattress from the top to the bottom, and then we have pulled it back to get the projectile out of there.
Correct.
Okay. Now, we also told you something else at deposition you were not aware of. Do you remember that?
I'm sure you're about to tell me.
If you don't worry. Didn't in fact we tell you at deposition?
How is it hearsay?
Didn't we in fact advise you at deposition on October 17th of 23, which is about a year and 2 months later, that CSI Bader had actually documented that the projectile came from the bottom mattress?
Yes, I believe that was mentioned at the meeting with us.
And she had indicated that in reports. It's even on property receipts where evidence is listed, correct?
I did specifically see it on property, yes.
Okay, thank you. My question then, Detective Hogelman, did you discuss that with her after our deposition where we pointed that out to you? Did you kind of discuss it with her and let her know she made an error?
I'm sure I did. I don't recall specifically the conversation, but yes.
Sure. And that's something you should do.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, but you're not supposed to discuss
Now,
the case
we talked
while
a little
it's
bit about
in
potentially the
litigation.
red substance above B and B itself. You can't tell this jury that's specifically from this event. How about A? A could be from this event, but you cannot specifically tell this jury it definitely was. And I'm speaking of A, A1, A2, and A3.
That's fair, yes.
And again, it very well could be, and you've done the rotting, but you cannot definitively say it is related.
Right, that's fair.
Were the mattresses kept?
No, I do not believe either mattress was retained.
Okay. Do you know why? I know you have a big property department.
No, just the photographs and documentation of it at the scene. I think we felt was complete at that point.
You also told us, you gave an opinion about where the
putting
gun
myself off
was,
screen
and the
for a
gun would
minute.
be facing towards A. You can't say that's where the gun was facing, correct?
I can only say that with projectile damage, that at some point, the muzzle of the gun has to be pointed in that direction for the projectile to take that path.
Yeah, the gun could be on the top bunk, it could be off the bunk, just pointed in that direction.
Anywhere along that same line of where the rod, if you extrapolate it out that same angle that rod is at, anywhere along that pathway, the gun could be pointed or held.
Okay, that makes more sense, anywhere along that pathway. And guns move, people move, will you agree with that?
That's fair, yes.
And I know you had some involvement with additional items in the kids' room, and I would like to find those photos, if you could bear with me, Detective Holman. Detective Hogelman, 22P State's Exhibit. Do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And this appears to be, and Ms. Bader talked about it yesterday as well, this appears to be some sort of baby bassinet with an evidence marker 7, and there's some items contained within it.
Correct.
Okay. What did you determine the black item to be?
So within this little toy wash tub, that item that is the black item appears to be an in-pocket holster.
What does that mean?
So in pocket, that settles into the trigger guard of a firearm, of a smaller compact firearm. It doesn't allow when somebody's reaching, the objective is for it, when you reach into the pocket, your finger can't incidentally brush the trigger or set the firearm off in your own pocket. So while it doesn't hold the firearm, it kind of makes the firearm safer or safe to carry within the pocket.
Okay. So is it actually called a clip or a holster? What would you call it?
Yeah, I keep referring to a holster. It may be closer, you could call it a clip. It's probably closer to a clip than a holster.
Okay. And do we know, does that fit any type of gun, or do you have any way of knowing?
Just based off of measurements, it could be compared to see if it matches a specific gun or not. Sometimes they're made to accommodate a number of different ranges or a couple different makes or models of firearm.
Okay. And did you do anything to determine that clip or that holder, whether it could have been used on the gun recovered in this case?
I did not know him.
Okay. And again, you're just documenting the scene. That may not have been something that you would have been tasked to do.
That's fair.
Right.
Yes.
And that is located somewhere in pretty close proximity to the bunk bed. Is that fair?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, that item's a little unusual there, isn't it? You find it to be a little bit unusual.
It's a gun accessory in a children's room. So yes, based on that information, I would say it's a little bit unusual.
Now, you helped execute the search warrant, collected items, documented the scene.
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, there's no full search done of the townhouse until you have that warrant signed.
Correct.
And one of the other areas that you noticed was the children's bedroom closet. Do you remember the closet in the children's bedroom?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Defense Exhibit 1 entered into evidence. Do you recognize that, Detective Holman?
Yes, ma'am.
And what does that picture depict in Defense Exhibit 1?
This is, I believe, is the children's the children's closet.
And what of significance was located in the children's closet?
As I recall, a brownish bag or backpack.
Can we see it in the photo, maybe?
I think that is the top of it, down at the bottom of the photograph.
And for the record, I'm just
To the right of where the dark pants are.
There
Yeah,
you go. Okay, to the right of the dark pants under this brown coat.
correct.
Okay, thank you, Detective. Was anything else collected out of that closet?
Just some of the materials that were in that bag.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Let me ask you first, 380 live rounds that could have then been fired in a firearm. Were there any 380 live rounds found anywhere in the home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Where were they found?
In the children's bedroom.
All right, we have 22 UUU and back to the state's exhibit. Is this the, as you've described it, backpack? Is this the same one that we just talked about in Defense Exhibit 1?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right, and tell the jury, and we talked to Shannon about this yesterday, Ms. Bader, but you tell us what in fact you saw, and it is marked by evidence marker, a yellow evidence marker 19. What was in that, detective?
What we see here, what appears to be a portion of a holster, a box, fully loaded or fully all 50 cartridges of 380 Norma ammunition, and then a spare magazine.
Okay. And that Norma ammunition, I think you already know, but I will go closer. It is 380.
Correct, ma'am.
And how about that magazine? Do we know if it fits in a 380?
I don't recall if it's a 380 magazine or not.
And the other item you said was a holster?
Yes, it does appear to be a holster.
Is that going to be a little bit different than the clip we looked at a little bit ago?
Yes, this one would actually attach to the belt or the pants.
Okay. And do we know if
I don't know. I think it was soft-sided. So again, that usually runs a range of different makes or models that it could accommodate.
Thank you. Now, the bag itself was not collected by your agency, only the items inside, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know why the bag was not collected?
I think what we identified as evidentiary were the materials that were inside the bag. The bag didn't appear to be involved directly, worn by somebody or anything identifiable on the bag that would have assisted with the investigation.
And finding that bag with 380 ammo, a magazine, and a holster, did you also find that odd that it was in the children's closet?
It could be seen as odd, yes. It's not generally a place that we would find those items, yes.
Now, there was blood down on the east end of the bunk bed. We have, or the top mattress. We have talked a lot about the west side where the pillow is and where the projectile holes are that we've already discussed, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's blood down on the eastern side. Can you give us any opinion as to who that blood is?
I did not know we were doing the investigation whose blood that might be.
Okay. And to this day, you would not know whose blood that was, correct?
That's correct.
And any of those areas on the eastern end, and we used the photos yesterday with Ms. Bader, are you aware of any swabs taken from the mattress itself on the east end?
No.
Mandalorian comforter was.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
There was also, and again, we looked at the picture yesterday with Ms. Bader, there was also some blood on the wall and the blood on the back railing, kind of where you're V-shaping around the east end. I'm not talking about staircase.
Right.
There was also what appeared to be a red substance. Did you have her swab any of that?
No, I don't believe any of that swabbed.
There were some swabbing done, I believe L, M, and N on the ladder, correct, detective?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. There were some other areas down on the ladder, potentially other transfer stains, also maybe a drip on the stair on the ladder. Those were not swabbed.
That's correct.
Did you have any concern whatsoever of contamination by the fact that mattress was moved to the bottom?
At the time that we were moving that mattress, we'd already taken all of our swabs of the areas that we were intending on collecting. So at that point, we were not as worried about contamination. I don't believe any other swabs were taken once that mattress starts getting moved.
Okay. And what happens to the bottom mattress when you're moving the top mattress to the bottom?
I recall the bottom mattress being pushed further in, but I don't know. I think the mattresses would have been in contact with each other at some point.
All right. What do you mean pushed further in?
Because there's a little bit of a void there. I think it was moved a little bit further in to accommodate a little bit of room for the top mattress.
So you're saying that both mattresses were somehow on that bottom bunk while you were testing the top mattress that had been moved there?
No, there's no testing being done. That's just the cutting into the
Well, that's
mattress.
what I meant. I
Yes,
apologize.
the very end. It's almost the very last thing we did before leaving the house is remove the mattress from the top bunk, photograph that for cutting into it, and then remove the projectile from it.
Okay, as you went through with Ms. Reader in detail.
Correct.
All right, but are you saying then that both mattresses were still on the bottom slats when you did that?
That's correct.
Okay. We saw some gauze that appeared to have a red substance or blood at the top of the stairs. Do you know who that belonged to, detective?
I do not know.
And the metal clip that you've even described with Ms. Bader, why was that found to be of significance?
As I recall, it was mentioned that there might have been a head wrapping or some sort of item on the male juvenile's head. So we weren't sure if that might have been a clip for that head wrap.
Okay. So did you talk to any of the responding deputies about the fact they had wrapped his head?
I talked to responding deputies. I don't recall them saying anything about the head wrap.
But you've described it as something that appears to attach gauze.
Correct, yes.
Were you responsible for collecting any phones from the scene?
As I recall, we did collect one phone from the couch.
A blue iPhone?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Do you know who that phone belonged to?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Now, downstairs by the couch, there appeared to be some substance on the floor. Do you remember that? Let me try to find the photo for you.
I believe you're probably referring to the area that looks a little bit like a footprint.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. I have co-counsel going through the other photos. Again, bear with me. There's a lot of photos. Okay, I actually found it. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Holder. Now, this is going to be States 22B, marked by red substance A. Do you recognize that? And is that what we're speaking of?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that is in close proximity to where the couch is downstairs.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And are you aware, in fact, that that is the couch that Mr. Bass sat holding his son, JJ?
Yes, I am aware of that.
And for illustration, we have 22A. Is this the couch that we're speaking of?
Yes.
It's marked by evidence marker 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
Evidence marker 1 is actually documenting that clip.
Correct.
So the area, we can see it clearly in this photo that we just looked at in red substance B larger is going to be this area here.
That's correct.
Okay. So you would agree with me that that's in close proximity to the couch?
Yes, ma'am.
Was anything done? What was done with that?
Just a photograph with the measurements as seen that we just looked at.
Okay. Was there anything that could have been done, amido black or anything else to see if it was a footprint, to see if there could be any sort of identification?
I think based on size and what the general appearance of it, at a couple different angles, you can even see where it looks like there might have been toe prints. Based on training experience, it was our thought it is a footprint. In terms of blood collection or processing, I don't believe any was done. I know the floor was textured, so I don't recall. There may have been conversation about there being a difficulty of trying to lift that print with the texture of the floor, but I don't recall there being any processing like amido black done for it.
Now, it's not really surprising for you to see that because you know from the facts of this case that Mr. Bass carried his son down and they were down in that area.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. And it did appear to be, like, to you, a smaller footprint.
Smaller, yes.
I need to ask you about defense exhibits 2C. Do you recognize that, detective?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, there is a pink children's car in the lower right-hand corner of that exhibit, and there appears to be some substance on it. Did you direct anybody, specifically Ms. Bader or anybody else, to swab that to determine what that might have been?
No, it was not swabbed.
I want to talk to you about defense 2A and B. Do you recognize this, detective?
Yes, ma'am. This is going to be the back side of the front door.
As far as it goes. Is that all right? Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
It just shows the whole door there. Okay. I have a close-up, Shannon Bader's photos, defense exhibit 2B. Is that just going to be a close-up of the photograph we just looked at?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's going to be on the back side of the front door.
Correct.
Okay. What was done in terms of processing of this red substance in these two defense
Looks like a
exhibits?
handprint.
Just photographs were taken.
Was any attempt made, even an attempt made, to potentially lift, say, for example, see if there might have been some prints here or find out whose blood it might be?
Right.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't believe there were. The fingerprint smudges closer to the lock area or the lower portion of the door, I believe did not appear to have any detail to them. But no, there's no additional processing done for the fingerprints or for the print areas.
Gotcha. And no DNA swab, just
Correct.
the photographs. Okay, thank you, Susan.
Go, lady. You were what?
Were you involved
heavy
in
foot.
searching the master bedroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in terms of the master bedroom, there was not anything recovered ballistics-wise that involved 380s, correct?
That's correct.
What was it doing in the kid's bedroom?
Now, what we just looked at in the defense exhibit 2A and B on the back of the door, would you agree with me that that would have been a pretty significant piece of evidence if somebody has their hand in blood or touches it and has blood on them? Could that be a significant piece of evidence?
It could have been. We knew there were multiple people going in and out of the door that had potentially bloody hands.
Did you see in the body cams how the door remains open?
I believe it is open for a period of time for some of the body camera, yes.
Okay. In terms of when I say open, the back of the front door that I just showed you where the staining is would have been up against the wall.
That's correct.
They're about to tear that off too.
Was any GSR testing done in this case that you're aware of, Detective, on Jayla Bass, on the son, JJ Bass?
No, there was none done.
Okay. Did you request for any of it to be done?
No.
All right. I want to ask you a little bit more. And I'm
Why? Okay, why was not the son tested? Why was the son not tested? Why? Why? Hello, why?
wrap it up for you, Detective, on the Mandalorian Comforter. I understand there was some additional testing done by Ms. Bader. Were you involved with that?
I was not present, but I was aware of what the additional work was.
Okay. So there was additional.
Kevin, I don't understand. Like, okay, you're here to process the scene. You're here to like collect evidence from the victims. In this case, who knows who had the gun? But you guys automatically assume it was the dad, not the mom, the dad, because he was what? Because he was calm. Somebody had to be calm. Look at how the mom was acting. She kept on saying, "My son, my son, my son." How do we not know it wasn't the son? If you, as a crime scene investigator, see, this is what I don't like. Cops do a lousy fucking job. They get confirmation bias where they think one person is guilty and then just go off of that. This dude is proof of that. How come you didn't check the son? Guaranteed the father's guilty of having a firearm. Both parents are guilty of that in this case. But how can you not check the son?
Testing done to take a swab of one of the red substances on the blanket.
Correct.
Or comforter. And in fact, there were photographs and specific infrared light used to try to lift gunshot residue.
At least see if there was something that would be consistent with that, yes.
And you guys can do that. You have these lights, you put it on, potentially you can see gunshot residue.
You can at least see something that would be consistent with what gunshot residue would be. We can't definitively say that. We would have to send it off for additional testing to be able to say that.
And my next question, was anything sent off on that Mandalorian comforter, what we just talked about, to determine if there was gunshot residue on that Mandalorian comforter?
No, we did not send it to a part of that.
Okay. You didn't do
Why
it.
That's correct.
And that potentially could put that comforter in closer relation on the bed to where the shooter is, potentially.
It could, yes.
All right, I want to ask you just a question about, Ms. Reader talked to you about items that were sent off, and you and I discussed areas that were not swabbed as well. You used the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to send off swabs, say from the firearm, swabs on the wall. There was a swab labeled O that was on the mattress. That is the agency you use, correct?
Yes, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, yes.
Okay. Now, Florida Department of Law Enforcement does have a limit, correct?
That's correct.
However, they have a limit per submission. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
All right. So technically, in this case, are you privy to how many submissions there were?
I don't know the full number of submissions that there were now.
Quite a few.
Yes.
All right. So a limit, and it's 5 per submission.
Correct.
Right. So you could submit 5 per submission, and technically then you could keep doing that. There's really no limit on what you can send.
Just time, correct.
Just what?
Just time.
Oh, okay. Too much time to do all that?
No, too much time in terms of usually 10 to 12 months until we're getting a turnaround for a
I
DNA
got
to
you.
come back. Yeah.
I got you. It would take too long to send that many items.
We would potentially not have some of those items returned to us before trial was done.
Okay. When were the items sent off?
I don't recall the specific date that they're sent off.
Because what is it now? About 2.5 years since this incident took place, roughly?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. But in addition to that submission limit, you can even get
You
exceptions.
guys are worried about time.
Right,
Like,
Yes.
right. It's just a phone call or an email.
Above us, but yes. Yeah.
okay, you guys are worried about time of how long it's going to take to process all these items, blah, 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 yada, 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 do, boo, blah, 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 all that great stuff. And, you know, prosecutors have to keep pushing back. The time that somebody goes to trial, at the same effing time, it shouldn't matter how much time it's going to take to process those items, to make sure that you do a thorough investigation, because you are messing with someone's life. I really hope that the jury, I hope they're on the same page as me. You never know. I'm a little whack job, but prove to me it was him. This is dumb.
Right, okay. Your superiors make a phone call or send an email. So really, there's no limit.
Just based off of what FDLE is willing to say yes or accept, there still has to be a cause or a reason to request additional time.
And a lot of the things in
If they even give him manslaughter as a lesser included, maybe. Not even manslaughter. It should be involuntary manslaughter because yes, you should have some responsibility. You know, if your kid gets a hold of a weapon and ends up unaliving somebody, you should have to pay that consequence because you allowed a firearm that was loaded in the reach of a child. You didn't keep it safe and away from them. You didn't keep your children safe. And the 2 child abuse charges, oh, he's getting those. He would get those. He definitely would get those because he's got one murder charge, first degree murder. He's got 2 attempted first degree or 2 attempted murders. Then he's got 2 child abuse charges. Yes, the child abuse charges. Yes, I'll give that to him all day. Until they go through like the jury instructions, I won't know if he's going to have a lesser included or not. And I really think that they should put lesser included because I really think that he should get involuntary manslaughter and manslaughter. Put those on there. Put those on there. You know, this is ridiculous. But at the same time, why is he the only one being charged? Where's the mom? Is she in jail? Because she should be getting it too. If it turns out that possibly the kid did it. You get what I'm saying? And that poor baby, they don't know better. Come on. This is sad.
In this case concerning the children's bedroom and the bunk bed, that would be pretty significant, wouldn't it?
It could be, yes.
Okay. And if FDLE refused to take additional items, there are other independent labs that can be.
Dude, I would be going furious with them swabs, okay? Like they'd be telling me, "Hey, bitch, you slow down on your swabs." I'll be like, "Fuck you. I got to make sure I'm not messing up somebody's fucking life." Even though there's already a life gone, you know, I'm not trying to mess up the next person's life, the dad's life. I mean, he still has a little boy to raise. I mean, no, this is crazy. Like I don't know how cops come to an assumption right away. I don't understand that. How can you let one parent go and one parent stay? Like you detain one parent and not the other. I don't understand any of this. I feel like it is a crappy investigation. They should have detained her ass, had another got a number from her, called another family member, had them go up to the hospital with the babies, and both of them, either lawyer up or remain silent, whatever, and then lawyer up, and then once they're lawyered up, then bring them back in for questioning, all this stuff. This is just crazy.
Used?
Correct.
Okay. But in this case, there wasn't any need to go above FDLE because the items that you wanted to send or Detective Gabot were sent.
Correct.
No other items besides the ones that got sent.
That's fair, yes.
Okay. May I have a
That's what I'm wondering. I don't even know if she's in jail. I know that they didn't detain her because, she was too frantic, so we just let her go to the hospital. Well, who cares if she was frantic? If I just unalived my kid, I damn sure would be frantic myself. Or, I left a firearm where my child could get it, and my child unalived my kid. And then in the mix of all the chaos and confusion, my other kid gets shot because the mom or dad's trying to take the magazine out. I mean, this is just absolutely bonkers. I mean, if you're trying to take the magazine out and all that great stuff, like, why do you have it pointed at your kid? I just got questions. I got a lot of questions. This is why I couldn't be a CSI detective. This is why I couldn't be a lawyer, because man, I'd be asking so many questions. We'd be there for days. We'd be there for days. And the one question I would be asking is, how did you come to the conclusion that it was my client? How did you come to this conclusion when we have A, B, and C there? And how come you didn't detain the wife? How come? You know, the little boy's, little boy, how come we didn't get, try to get stories from them? Why are we asking questions when we haven't even read people their Miranda rights to let them know that they're detained? Why are we arresting people when we don't know if they're the ones that committed the crime? Our jail systems are full. And this is why. Because cops don't want to do their freaking job, and they just automatically assume, oh, well, the dad was calm, so he's guilty type shit. He seems like a quiet individual. Sitting there watching him, he seems like he's a quiet individual. He doesn't seem like he's extroverted and all out there. As quiet people, we're quiet. We just like to be quiet. But does that make us guilty? No. It doesn't make him guilty. The only thing he's guilty of, like I said, is definitely the child abuse charges. Only because there was a loaded gun involved. So if he didn't do the shooting or whatever, he's guilty on those. So's the mother. So's the mother. You better get her ass up in there. I still don't understand how you arrived at only arresting him and not her. Detaining her and not him. Whatever. You know what I mean. Why didn't you detain both of them? Because she went out to call 911? That don't make no damn sense. Anyways.
Moment, Judge.
Yes.
Right, Kevin. I
Just a
just love
second.
this kind of stuff. I
Just a
do.
second.
I do.
I had asked you about any.
This is why I couldn't go into being a lawyer. Like, I really couldn't, because I would ask all the questions. Like, she didn't ask any of the questions I want to know. Like, how do you know that blood stain belonged to that blood stain? And how do you know that this blood stain? How come you didn't swab the other side? Like, all these big pools of blood or big smears of blood. How do you what? We're not checking the traces of blood that's going down the stairs, and the smudge print and all of that other stuff. Like, how are we not doing this, people? How did we not test the little boy's hands for gunshot residue? Jesus. Because that's what it's
GSR
given.
that was done, or actually not done, on Jermaine Bass or Jermaine, the son, JJ. Correct?
Yes.
Are you aware of any GSR done on the hands of my client, Jermaine Bass?
No, I don't believe there was.
Are you aware of any GSR testing done on Shirley Bass?
No.
What? Oh my God, dude, you failed as a freaking CSI, blah, blah, blah. You failed the job. You didn't test not a single freaking person in that. Lord have mercy. I thank goodness I'm not on that jury, because I would be like, not guilty all day. Bam. Bam. You didn't prove shit to me. Right there. You didn't test. And look at him. He's like, no. Like, F you, dude. F you. You are messing with somebody's life. You didn't test his hands, her hands, the little boy's hands. Wow. But you assume that it was him, huh? You're a piece of shit.
I don't believe there was.
Now, does FDLE do gunshot residue testing?
I don't believe they do in terms of interpretation for identifying GSR.
There are other labs that do that, correct?
Correct, there are private labs, yes.
So technically, if your agency had taken gunshot residue of the son or Jayla or Mrs. Bass or Mr. Bass, it could have been sent off to an outside agency.
Yes, it's while they're done at the scene. Yes, it can be sent out.
And as we've established, they were not.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, you fell. It's a shooting, dude. Hello. Hey, sir. Hello. It's a shooting. It's a shooting, sir. It's a shooting. You have the dad in the vehicle. Hello, 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 hello. You could also send his clothes off to the lab. You had him at the freaking scene while you were doing all this, and you didn't test. Oh, where is the detective on this case? Because, boy, oh boy, wow.
Okay. But it certainly could have been done had it been requested in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
I thank you so much,
Should have been
Detective
done.
Coleman.
Thank you.
It should have been done. F all the dumb stuff.
Defense counsel showed you a picture of what looked like a handprint on the back of the front door. Do you recall that photo?
Yes, ma'am.
You said that there was no further testing done on it. Did you submit it to anyone else at your agency to look at it any further?
We did submit to our fingerprint analysis unit.
Were you able to get any results from that request for fingerprint analysis of that photo?
No, we were not. It was a not of value comparison, meaning they were not able to get sufficient detail from the photograph and or the contents of the photograph to be able to make an identification.
Now, at the beginning, when you first arrived to the scene and throughout your investigation, did you ever become aware or of anyone else being injured in this case besides Jermaine Bass, the little boy, or Jayla Bass, the little girl?
No, ma'am. I was not aware of anybody else being injured.
Defense counsel spoke to you about swabbing and sending things off for DNA. Would the results of any swabs or DNA taken from the top mattress that we've discussed in this case help you resolve whether or not the gun going off was an accident?
I don't believe
I'm
so.
going to object to that speculation, improper opinion.
Sustained.
Would any DNA swabs that were taken from the top mattress discussed by defense counsel at the locations decided by defense counsel, would that have helped you decide whether or not, or who the shooter of the gun was?
Same objection.
Sustained.
I don't have any further questions, Judge.
All right. You can step down, sir. Thank you. Is he released from his subpoena?
Yes.
I would ask you remain under subpoena, but he's free to the courthouse.
All right. You're still subject to recall. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Maybe a first briefly, Judge.
Sure.
They're probably going to go to lunch. I mean, not lunch, but break, and then we'll go through that. But how do you not? Oh, see, they're letting the jury out. Mm-hmm. Short break till about. Oh, how long did they? Okay. There he comes back in. See, still detained, all that great stuff. I would be right here in front row, center, eating some popcorn, writing all my notes down, and man, I couldn't. Nope. Don't let me be a reporter. Don't let me be shit. Because I want to know how the heck you got to that thing. Okay, but then it goes back. Okay. We're still quiet, blah, blah, blah. Come on, dude. That was very rude. Stop glitching. There's the jury. How long is this one?
Right. Be seated. Call your next witness.
Weinstein.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
So about an hour. Hour left of this stream.
Good morning. If you would please introduce yourself and spell your name for us.
Good morning. My name is Danielle Weinstein. DANIE.
I don't know about walking all together, Kevin.
Kevin.
I mean, just because they have a botched investigation, like the two child abuse charges are on there. And if I can't convict him on murder in the first degree or the attempted, because that was the two attempteds, and then, but I definitely could get him on the two child abuse charges. But other than that, no. But this, like, okay, detective, let's hear this. What the hell is your damn problem, and why didn't you have your CSIs do their job? You know what I'm saying? Like they're following under your direction, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weinstein. Ms. Weinstein, what are you employed?
I'm employed by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, or FDLE.
And what is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement? If you can explain what that agency is to the jury.
Sure. It is an agency that helps out with criminal investigations. We have a laboratory and an investigative services.
All right. How long have you been working with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
For about 8 years.
What did you do before you started working at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
I was just getting my degrees before then.
Okay, what degree did you
Oh,
obtain?
you're not the
So I went to
detective?
Cedar Crest College, which is in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where I received my Bachelor of Science in Genetic Engineering with a concentration in Forensic Science. And then I continued to receive my Master of Science in Forensic Science.
Oh, this is a forensic scientist. Okay, but if they don't do all the fucking swabs you need, what's the use of you? Jeez.
The same school?
Yes.
Okay. And after receiving those, did you have any training before starting work with Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
I had training that was given by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
All right. And what does that training involve?
So the training through FDLE takes about 1.5 years. In the first part, I'm doing readings of journal articles and textbooks. I'm working on practice samples, and I'm taking written, oral, and practical exams. Then in the second part, I'm working on casework underneath the supervision of a trained analyst. And the entire thing finishes with an oral board, which I successfully completed. And that means that I am certified by FDLE in forensic serology and DNA analysis.
Do you have a particular title?
I'm a crime laboratory analyst in the biology section.
And what are your duties as a crime laboratory analyst, like on a general basis?
So generally, I'm assigned cases by my supervisor, and I may do forensic serology testing. So that's testing for body fluids such as blood, semen, and saliva. And then I may forward samples through the DNA analysis process to develop DNA profiles. I can look at any questioned DNA profiles from the evidence, and I can compare any known DNA profiles from known people in the case. I can write reports, and I can come to court on an as-needed basis.
All right, and so you just mentioned some words. Can you explain to the jury what is forensic serology and DNA analysis?
Sure. So forensic serology is the testing of body fluids such as blood, semen, and saliva. And then forensic DNA analysis is the further testing of those cells or body fluids in order to develop DNA profiles.
Hey, lady, just say you're a DNA specialist.
And what are DNA profiles? What does that mean?
A DNA profile essentially looks like peaks on a graph. It is representative of being from human DNA. That's essentially what DNA profiles are.
Do you belong to any professional organizations?
No, I do not.
Okay. And is the lab work you do accredited?
Yes, it is.
And is the lab itself accredited?
Yes.
Okay. Approximately how many DNA analysis have you done, do you believe, in your career?
Definitely I've worked on over 800 cases at this point.
Do you have any continuing educational training as part of your job with FDLE?
Yes, we do. We are required to have 16 hours at least of continuing education per year. This involves reading journal articles to keep up with everything that's going on and watching webinars and going to conferences as well.
All right. And do you ever take proficiency tests?
Yes, I do.
What are those?
A proficiency test is a test that, as a DNA analyst, I need to take twice per year. It's essentially a test that's given by an external agency where no one at FDLE knows the answers. I treat it just as if I would, using our normal procedures, working it as if it's evidence. And then I send the results back to the agency and they rate it on a pass-fail basis.
And have you passed every proficiency test you've been given?
Yes, I have.
And have you ever testified in court as an expert in DNA analysis?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times?
About 19 times.
Judge, this time I'll attend to the witness. Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, explain, and you kind of started this a little bit when I was talking about DNA. Now, what is DNA? If you can explain what DNA is to the jurors in terms that might, for lay people to understand.
Sure. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It is the building blocks of all living things that make up everything in the world that's alive. DNA in the human body is within every cell, with the exception of mature red blood cells. You're going to get half of your DNA from your mother and half from your father to make you who you are. Greater than 99% of our DNA is the same from person to person, and less than 1% is different. So it's within that less than 1% where people are going to be unique and where I do my testing. There is a caveat of I would not be able to tell identical twins apart. They would appear to have the same DNA profile.
Even that unique 1% would be the same when you're talking about identical twins.
With my testing, yes.
Okay. And where is DNA? You mentioned on every cell of the body. So where is it found typically?
It is found all over the entire body, every single cell. So in all of the body fluids, in cells in the hands. It's found in the roots of the hair as well.
So like skin cells?
Yes, skin cells as well.
What is the method of DNA testing that you use in your lab?
So we use STR DNA testing.
And what does that mean? What is STR testing?
STR stands for short tandem repeats. These are short repeating areas along the DNA. I look at a total of 21 different STR areas, and that's what makes up the DNA profile. As I had mentioned, getting half your DNA from your mother and half from your father, you're going to have one DNA type from each parent at each of those 21 areas. So a DNA profile will contain 2 DNA types at each area for one person.
All right. And how long has STR testing been used?
That's been used for over 30 years, since the 1990s.
All right. Is it generally accepted in the forensic science community?
Yes, it is.
Now, when did you first become involved in the Jermaine Bass case?
I first received evidence back in the beginning of 2022, I believe, or 2023.
If you need to look at your report
Sorry,
to refresh your recollection, you can.
The first submission that I received was 10/19/2022.
Okay, so October 19th of 2022 is when you first received a submission.
Yes.
All right. What item in that submission in October of 2022 were you given to analyze?
I was given 4 different items. There were swabs from a magazine base, swabs from the grip and trigger, and swabs from the slide and sights. These are all from a Glock 42 firearm. And then there were also buckle swabs from Jermaine Bass Jr.
And explain to the jury what buckle swabs are.
So buccal swabs are a known DNA swab that's taken from the inside cheek of a person's mouth. I'm given the buccal swabs to use as a known standard for the person, so I'll get a known DNA profile for them.
Okay, so when you get a buccal swab that's identified as being to an individual, you will break down that DNA so that you can form an entire profile to use later to compare to other items. Is that right?
Yes, I can explain our DNA analysis process.
Okay.
If you'd like.
Sure, absolutely.
So for the DNA analysis process, I first cut a swab and place it into a tube, and then that goes through the process. There are 4 steps. The first step is called extraction. That's where I'm using chemicals and heat to break open the cells and release the DNA. Then the second step is called quantitation. That's where I'm determining how much DNA, how much human DNA is in each of my samples. Then the third step, that's called amplification, and that's where we use another instrument that is kind of like a photocopier. It's highlighting all of those 21 areas, those STR areas that I want to look at, and it's making millions of copies of them. And then the final step is where I'm detecting that DNA and running it on an instrument that's separating out the DNA, and it's translating that information into a DNA profile, which looks like peaks on a graph.
All right. Now, when you receive these items, which you described as swabs from the magazine base, swabs from grip/trigger, swabs from slide/sights, and the buckle swabs from Jermaine Bass, are each of these items packaged individually?
Yes, they are.
Is there any chance of contamination between any of the items?
Not as far as I know. When I receive each item, and I'm working each item, I only have one item of evidence open at a time, and I clean my lab bench and all my utensils in between each item of evidence as well.
Okay. And you described what type of instrument did you say you use?
We use it for which part?
Just for the analysis part. You were saying we use an instrument that you put them in or something?
Sure, we use a lot of different instruments. So we use the instrument that does our quantitation, it's called a 7500. The instrument that does the amplification steps or making all the copies, that's called a rder thermal cycler. And then the final step where I was talking about separating out the DNA and translating that information, that's a 3500 genetic analyzer instrument.
All right. And are these instruments inspected and certified on a regular basis?
Yes, they are.
Now, were you able to develop a profile for comparison from the buccal swabs of Jermaine Bass Jr.?
Yes, I was.
All right. Did you then attempt to make a comparison with the other swabs that you received in this initial submission, which was the first submission you received, correct?
Yes, so I obtained a complete DNA profile from the buccal swabs from Jermaine Bass. So that means there was DNA at all of the 21 areas I was looking at. And then I went on to look at the swabs from the magazine base and the other swabs from the grip and trigger and the slide and sights. And I determined
Well, before you, I'll go through each one individually. Why don't we do that to make it a little easier? So did you compare the known swab or the known DNA of Jermaine Bass Jr. with the swabs from the magazine base of the Glock 42 firearm?
Yes, I did. So prior to my comparison, I will look at the overall DNA profile that I get from the magazine base, and I'll determine a conclusion about it. So what I first determined was that the DNA results I obtained demonstrated the presence of a mixture consistent with 2 donors, including at least 1 male contributor. So then with that mixture, I then compared Jermaine Bass Jr., and he was included as a possible contributor to the mixed DNA profile.
Okay, so he was included. Were you able to make a statistical determination of the likelihood that his DNA was included in that?
So the statistic that I calculated was that the observed mixed DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if the sample originated from Jermaine Bass Jr. and 1 unrelated individual than from 2 unrelated individuals.
So 700 billion to 1 that he would be one of the included ones, correct? Basically.
No, so the statistic needs to be stated in a very specific way.
Okay.
It's the observed mixed DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from Jermaine Bass Jr. and 1 unrelated individual than from 2 unrelated individuals.
Okay. All right. And 700 billion. How many people are there on this planet?
So there's probably about 7 billion people on the planet. Our statistic, of course, is not related to the people on the planet, but it is easier to think about how 7 times 100 would give you 700 billion people. So it's just kind of a cutoff and a threshold that we use where the actual statistic is greater than that.
All right. So in that particular swab from the magazine base of the Glock, you had determined that it was that he was likely included as a contributor to the DNA on that particular swab, Jermaine Bass Jr.
Jermaine Bass Jr. was included as a possible contributor, yes.
Okay. What about the slide and sights of the firearm, which was the swabs from the slide sights of the Glock 42 firearm? Were you able to make any determination from that particular swab?
For the swabs from the slide and sights, for that result, I got limited DNA results, so that data was not interpretable. This means in this case that there were DNA types in the profile, but there wasn't enough information for me to really determine is it one person, is it more than one person? So I decided I can do no further interpretation on this. I can't do any comparisons to it.
Okay. So no comparisons really, or nothing you could say about the slider sites from that particular swab?
It was not interpretable, no.
Okay. What about the grip and the trigger, the swabs from the grip and the trigger? Now, and when you receive these submissions, you're titling them swabs from grip and trigger. Did you actually make the swabs?
I did not take the swabs. The swabs were taken by the agency and then sent to me.
Okay, so when you write down swabs from grip/trigger.
Okay, so the base where the magazine was, the son's DNA was, there was 2 contributors, but only the son's DNA was identified. That's weird. Okay, again, still more questions than answered. Hopefully this part, and on the slider there was not enough DNA to blah 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 whatever. Maybe because they rubbed it off with their gloves. But okay, this part, the trigger and the grip, I got to know. I got to know. Who was it? Who was it? And you say the dad. If you say the dad, like I said, if he was wrestling the gun away from the kid, this is so hard.
That's what you were being told was the title of the swap, correct?
Yes, that's what they were labeled as.
Okay. And what did you determine from the swab, from the grip and trigger?
For the swabs from the grip and trigger, the DNA results obtained demonstrated the presence of a mixture consistent with 2 donors, including at least 1 male contributor. And then I did my comparison, just like any other sample, where Jermaine Bass Jr. was included as a possible contributor to the mixed DNA profile. Then I continued on to calculate my statistic, which was that the observed mixed DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if the sample originates.
So the grip and the trigger, also the son is the contributor. Okay, carry on. But we're not hearing if the dad is. Hello, Dad.
From Jermaine Bass Jr. and 1 unrelated individual, then from 2 unrelated individuals.
When you finish these so in other words, basically.
And how come? Okay, if you got a mixture of two DNA profiles, how come it's only 1 male DNA? Is the other one the mom? See, I got questions, baby. Come on, lady, answer my questions. This ain't answering my questions. This is giving me more questions than answers. I need some answers.
You included Jermaine Bass Jr. on the grip and trigger as well as the magazine base, but you were unable to get anything from the slider sites, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, when you are finished with your findings, do you submit a report?
Yes, I do.
Okay. When did you submit the report on these particular findings?
This report was submitted on February 13th, 2023.
All right. Now, after submitting this report, did you receive another submission?
Yes, I did.
And what did you receive?
In the next submission, I received buccal swabs from Shirley Bass.
All right. What was the date of that submission?
The date of my laboratory report, that was.
Or the date it was submitted to you?
I'm not sure if I have that number.
Like, may I approach the litmus switch?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
My apologies. Yes, the evidence was submitted on May 11th, 2023.
Okay. So on May 11th of 2023, what were you given?
I was given buccal swabs from Shirley Bass.
All right. What did you do with that submission?
So I ran these swabs through the DNA analysis process, and I obtained a complete DNA profile from those known buccal swabs.
So you obtained from this buccal swab a complete DNA profile of Shirley Bass?
Correct.
Okay. And what did you do with that profile?
So then I compared the profile to the swabs from the magazine base and the swabs from the grip and trigger, those mixtures that I had before.
And were you able to include Shirley Bass as a possible contributor for either one of those areas?
No, I was not.
Okay. So you did not locate the DNA of Shirley Bass on either the grip or the trigger, as well as or the base of the magazine.
Objection, that's misleading, Judge.
Ask the question again.
You were not able to determine or find DNA belonging to Shirley Bass to include her on either one of those submissions.
Specifically for the swabs from the magazine base, when I compared the DNA profile from Shirley Bass to that mixture, there was not enough support for inclusion or exclusion. So no determination could be made to that item. So essentially there were some DNA types of hers present, but the calculation was very low. It gave a very low statistic, which is not very descriptive. It cannot tell me whether or not her DNA.
Okay, so they had some contributors, but there wasn't enough to tell. Okay, that more questions again.
Or may not be present in the sample, so I cannot include or exclude her. And then as far as the swabs from the grip and trigger, Shirley Bass was excluded as a contributor. So her DNA types were not present in the DNA profile.
So she was specifically excluded from the grip and trigger, correct?
That is correct.
And when was this report completed?
This report was completed July 18th, 2023.
Did you, after receiving or after completing this report and submitting it, did you receive another submission on this case?
Yes, I did.
And when did you receive that submission?
I received this, or my lab received it on July 27th, 2023.
And what was that submission?
I received a blood stain card that was represented as being from Jayla Bass.
All right. And were you able to obtain a DNA profile from that submission of Jayla Bass?
Yes, I obtained a complete DNA profile.
All right. And what did you do with that complete DNA profile that you obtained of Jayla Bass?
So I then compared it to those previous mixtures that I had from the evidence.
All right. And what were your results?
For the magazine base, Jayla Bass, or yes, Jayla was included as a possible contributor to the mixed DNA profile. And the statistic I calculated to that was that the observed mixed DNA profile is approximately 25,000 times more likely to occur if the sample originated from Jayla Bass and one unrelated individual than from two unrelated individuals.
Okay, so 25,000 versus 700 billion, that's a big difference in the statistical probability, correct?
Yeah, so it's still an inclusion. It's still a higher statistic, but it's not quite to the level of greater than 700 billion.
Okay. What about the grip and trigger? Were you able to obtain, or were you able to make a comparison in that particular case?
Yeah, so for the swabs from the grip and trigger, Jayla Bass was excluded as a contributor to the mixed DNA profile.
So her DNA was, you were not able to find her DNA at all on the grip or trigger?
Her DNA types were not present.
Okay.
Okay, get to the dad.
And when was this report done?
This report was completed September 13th, 2023.
Did you at any time receive another submission from on this case?
Yes, I did.
And when was that submission received?
This one was received October 26th, 2023.
All right, and what did you receive in that submission?
I received buccal swabs from Jermaine Bass Fl, which I was told was the son.
Okay. Were you able to develop a profile from that submission?
Yes, I developed a complete DNA profile from those buccal swabs.
And were you able to make any comparisons with that known profile?
Yes, I did. I compared it to those previous mixtures.
And what did you find?
For the swabs from the magazine base, Jermaine Bass was included as a possible contributor to the mixed DNA profile. And the statistic I calculated was that the observed mixed DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if the sample originated from Jermaine Bass and one unrelated individual than from two unrelated individuals.
Yeah. Go ahead, finish.
And then also compared to the swabs from the grip and trigger, for that one, Jermaine Bass was also included as a possible contributor to the mixed DNA profile. The statistic sounds the same. The observed mixed DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if the sample originated from.
So it was his DNA and his son's. That still don't tell me that he popped the little girl.
Bass and one unrelated individual than from two unrelated individuals.
So in this particular case, and I'm going to go through, so you have on the grip and trigger two potential contributors, and you've now identified both the father and the son as potential or possible inclusion in those two, as the two donors, correct?
For the grip and trigger, I have included both the father and son, yes.
Right. And on the base of the magazine, you indicated two donors, but in this particular case, you've indicated now to the jury that there was the father, the son, and potentially the daughter as well. So that's three donors, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Which doesn't totally make sense for a mixture of two donors to have three people included to it. But the reasoning for this is because they're all related biologically. So I did go back and do further figuring out who may be actually included.
And what did you determine? Explain that to the jury, what you determined.
Sure. So I had written another report, actually, that was just about doing more statistics to try to figure out who may be included. So I was able to compare combinations of two people. So again, like the reason for all three appearing to be included is because they're all related, they're all sharing DNA, right? A father is going to give half their DNA.
But see, okay, yeah. You got the mom's buccal swabs, and you got the dad's, and you got the little kids, both the little kids and stuff. Okay, cool. But what about the gun? Like, okay, DNA is important. Yes, yes. But in a shooting case, what is important here is the gunshot residue. How they didn't test all their hands for gunshot residue is crazy to me.
To the children. So it can look like somebody, when compared individually, is present because their DNA types are present. But in comparing them in combinations of two instead, I'm able to figure out who may be in the profile. So essentially, I did combinations of comparing both Jermaine Bass Jr. and Jayla Bass, and comparison of comparing Jermaine Bass the son and Jayla Bass. And for both of those, when looking at the profiles taken together, and I also calculated statistics to it as well, both of them were not possible to occur together. So the father-daughter together and the two siblings together could not occur together. So when compared together, they were excluded. And then so basically what I was trying to determine is what's the best explanation for this data. So this mixture is best explained if the father, Jermaine Bass Jr., and the son, Jermaine Bass, are included together. So that statistic that I calculated to that inclusion is that the observed mixed DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if the sample originated from Jermaine Bass Jr. and Jermaine Bass than if it originated from two unrelated individuals.
All right. So basically, by doing those combinations, it excludes Jayla Bass as being a contributor to this mixture.
Yes, that is correct.
Well, she's the main victim.
Now, did you do a test to determine what type of DNA? Meaning, was it touch DNA? Was it from saliva? Was it from blood? Were you able to did you do any of that type of determination with these cells?
I did not. I'm not able to know what the DNA came from.
Okay. And so we talked about touch DNA. Explain to the jury what a touch DNA is.
Sure. So touch DNA is just DNA that comes from the hands, from
mitochondria
on an
DNA.
object or a person.
All right. And would, like, say perspiration, say you were sweating, could that transfer or go onto a gun or go onto any object basically?
Yes. So touch DNA transfers at any time you're touching an item.
Yeah, but she didn't have to perform that test though. So, and they got a lot of mixture of both of their bloods together. I mean, both of their DNAs together. I don't think it's touch DNA like they're trying to make it out to be. And it's not her fault. It really isn't her fault. She can only test what they submit. But still, like, why wasn't a GSR test done? I got questions.
So in general, it's going to vary throughout the day, even from with one person. If somebody has recently washed their hands, they're obviously going to have less DNA on their hands. If somebody says recently coughed into their hand, they maybe have some saliva in their hand, and body fluids are going to contain more DNA than just cells from the hand. So they could have more DNA in that case to transfer to an item. Yeah, those are different ways.
How long does it take to touch something and leave DNA?
It really only takes a brief touch, but it just will also depend on whether I can detect it, how like swabs are collected, for instance.
Okay, but it doesn't take much time. In other words, if I were to grab this right here, push that or something, I could leave touch DNA on that particular location.
Yes, you can.
Did you eventually receive a final submission in this case?
Yes, I did.
All right, and do you recall when that submission was?
It was submitted to me on March 7th, 2024.
Okay, and what was that submission in March 7th of 2024?
So this was swabs from a Mandalorian comforter from area number 6 on the comforter.
All right, what did you do with that swab?
So that swab did have red-brown staining on it. So I used a color change test, which gave chemical indications for the presence of blood. And then I continued to send the swab through the DNA analysis process. And I obtained a complete DNA profile consistent with a male individual.
All right, and did you compare that profile with the known profiles you already had done in this case?
Yes, I did.
And were you able to make a match in this particular case?
Yes, for this complete DNA profile from the Mandalorian comforter, this DNA profile matches the DNA profile from Jermaine Bass, so that's the son. And the statistic that I calculated was that the observed DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if a sample originated from Jermaine Bass than if it originated from an unrelated individual.
And was the son Jermaine Bass the sole contributor to this? Was there any, or were there any other donors that you located?
It was just a single source, meaning it came from one person. So Jermaine Bass was the one who matched to it.
Okay. Did you receive any other submissions after that submission?
No, I did not.
And did that basically conclude your work on this case as far as what you did in your lab analysis?
Yes, it did.
Judge Vita, one moment.
Stop.
All right, Your Honor, I will pass the witness.
All right. Press.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Why did they?
Now, you are aware in this case some of the alleged facts, correct?
Yes, I'm given a case summary on the front end when I get every case that comes from the agency.
And that's typical.
Yes.
And you were very careful in terms of the son and the father having the same name.
Yes.
And Jermaine Bass Jr., the swab you got before the other one, would be the father.
Yes, that's correct.
And then the son was just Jermaine Bass.
Yes, that's how the swabs were labeled when they came to me.
Okay. Now, it would not be at all unusual for there to be DNA of Jermaine Bass Jr., Mr. Bass, on his own firearm, correct?
Yes, I would expect that to be the case.
And a lot of times when you have mixtures, not necessarily even the mixtures in this case, there's typically an expected donor that you say, I expect this person to be here, and here's other people in the mix.
In certain cases, we will have an expected donor. It just depends on the facts of the case that I'm given.
But you are confident that you didn't mess anything up. You have the two Jermaine Basses separate for your results.
Yes, I'm confident. I did speak with the agency to verify that I had the correct DNA swabs because I was concerned about the names being the same.
Okay. And I looked at your reports, and then I looked at the dates you received your submissions, and I saw pretty much a 3 to 4 month turnaround. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. So you receive the items into FDLE, but they go into an intake first, do they not?
Yes, they do. They go into our secure evidence vault.
They will eventually make their way to you. You work on the item, you furnish your report.
Yes.
And in this situation, we have from submission of items to FDLE before they even get to you, you doing your work, submitting your report, about approximately 3 to 4 months.
Yes, I mean, I don't remember specific timing.
You have your reports in front of you. If you need to look at them to verify, would you like to look at them too?
Sure.
And the one that you did the more detailed statistics on, that took a little longer.
Yes, but that was also separate. There wasn't anything submitted at that time.
Right. Now, did you need to look just to verify that we're talking about 3 to 4 months from submission to reports?
Yes, about, and that is typical. You know, I'm working 20 to 30 cases every single month, so.
All right. And FDLE has policies of limits, correct?
What type of?
Like limits of submission of evidence, I apologize.
Oh, yes, we have an evidence submission policy that agencies must follow with respect to submitting items of evidence.
Okay. And those limits are based per submission.
Yes.
So an agency can submit up to the limit for one submission. They then could do a second submission up to that limit, a third submission up to that limit.
Yes, that's correct.
There's also ways to get exceptions, just to get approval.
Yes, there are.
And is that as easy as a phone call or an email to get the approval to receive, your agency to receive additional items?
Yes, it would be a phone call to the supervisor of the biology section. One of the supervisors will have to give permission to send more items in.
Okay. Mr. Terry spoke with you a little just now. Based on what Mr. Terry talked with you about, I determined what you said was 4 known profiles you received.
Yes.
Throughout this whole case. And you received sets of 4 swabs, sets magazine, grip and trigger, slide and sight, and comforter.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Now, you cannot testify here today, or in front of this jury, that Shirley Bass did not touch that firearm.
As far as the DNA results that I obtained and what I compared to with Shirley Bass, there was no determination as far as her contribution of DNA to the magazine base. And then for the grip and trigger, she was excluded as a contributor.
Okay, now I know those are your results. What I'm asking you is because somebody has been excluded from DNA, either from a single source profile or a mixture, that does not mean they didn't touch the item.
It doesn't necessarily mean they've never touched the item. I can only report what my DNA results show at this specific time. I can't tell you what may have occurred at any given time, prior or after, of course. And I cannot tell you how DNA gets there or when it gets there.
So you're not telling this jury Shirley Bass never touched that firearm that night. You can't. And that's not your job to do that.
Correct.
Okay. When you were looking at the swabs you received, the swabs from the magazine base, the grip trigger, or the slide, you did not note any red staining, correct?
Correct. I noted that there's a light grayish staining on these swabs.
Which swab is that?
On all of those swabs, from the magazine base, the grip trigger, and the slide sights.
Because it was not a red substance, was there any need to go any further and do maybe a phenolphthalein test?
So the phenolphthalein test is our test for blood, and no, I did not use it in this case with those 3 swabs.
Did you in fact use it on the Mandalorian Comforter swab?
Yes, I did, because those swabs were a red-brown color, which is typically consistent with what we see with possible blood.
And when I asked you just a little bit ago that you cannot tell this jury that Shirley Bass did not touch that firearm that evening, the same applies to Jayla Bass, correct? Well, I know what your results are. Right. Go ahead and look.
Right. Right, so she was initially included, and then I did my further comparisons where she was excluded from the magazine base, and then from the mixture of the grip and trigger, she was also excluded as a contributor.
After she had been included in the swabs from the magazine.
Yes.
Now, those are your results, and as you said, basically, you get your items, you get your swabs, you have your known profiles. All you can tell us is what those swabs are telling you at that time.
Yes, I just do my individual comparisons when I get the swabs.
Okay, so you can't sit here and tell this jury that Jayla Bass didn't touch that firearm that evening.
I don't have any knowledge of any activities that occurred. I can only tell you what my DNA results show.
All right, let's put aside the Mandalorian Comforter. That is a single source profile, and that matches Jermaine Bass, the son, and that is item 15.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna kind of put those aside and concentrate on the other 2. And then you've already talked with Mr. Terry about the slide and the site. You could not make any determination for anybody on that.
What?
For any of the known profiles on the slide or site, which is going to be item 9.
So yes, so for the slide and sites, it was a limited DNA profile. There wasn't enough information in the profile for me to do any further comparisons to it. So it just stopped there.
Okay. So I'm going to concentrate on item 7, the swabs from the magazine, and item 8, and discuss those in a little bit more detail. Now, item 7, the swabs from the magazine base, you have told Mr. Terry that that was a mixture consistent with 2 contributors.
Yes, that is correct.
And you included both Jermaine Bass, the son, and Jermaine Bass Jr., the father.
Yes, I did.
They were both included with the statistic calculated being 700 billion.
It was greater than 700 billion.
And in fact, 700 billion, isn't that your cap or your cutoff at FDLE?
Yes, that's our cutoff point. It's just used because it's an easier number to think about.
She should have no reason to get rattled because she just tested what was there. She just tested what was there. It ain't her fault. It's the stupid detectives. I'm still mind blown that they didn't do JSR tests on anybody. That is wild to me.
So you could have somebody included in a mixture and it's even more than 700 billion, but you're going to cut it off at that 700 billion.
Well, we're saying it is greater than 700 billion, and I do have the actual statistical numbers in my case file.
Right. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that on the grip and trigger and go through that. All right. So now, did you use Star Mix with item 7?
Yes, I did.
Please tell the jury what Star Mix is.
So Star Mix is our computer software program. It's essentially a calculator. It helps me separate out the contributors to a mixture, so the people that are in a mixture, and it also helps me calculate my statistics.
Okay. Back to item 7. You then make a determination after having a mixture consistent with 2. You have identified both male Basses. Now you end up getting a buckle for Jayla Bass, and she's included as well with a statistic of 25,000.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And Mr. Terry had said to you originally, you didn't find Shirley's DNA, but you actually couldn't include her, nor could you exclude her.
That is correct. It was too low of a statistic for me to make any determination whether she could be included or excluded.
So she certainly then cannot be excluded, correct?
She cannot be either included or excluded.
Now, not being able to make any determination as to Shirley Bass could be from a combo that the information is limited and the fact the parties were related, correct?
Correct. So for that profile, there was a little bit of information missing out of it. It was a more low level, a little bit less DNA that was in it, as well as because the mother, of course, would be related to the children with half of her DNA being given to the children. Of course, that would also impact the comparison. It may look like some of her DNA types are in the profile, even if maybe they wouldn't be normally.
Okay. Now, before you did the additional statistics, and you did that at the request of Mr. Terry.
Correct, I did speak with him.
And this is again based, we're talking just about item 7, where now you have a third contributor, correct?
I have 2 contributors, or I'm sorry, 2 donors to that mixture, where 3 people have been included too.
Now, before you did the additional statistics for Mr. Terry, did you discuss this mixture of 2 contributors with your supervisors?
Yes, I did. I discussed with my supervisor and also our technical leader about how to go about using StarMix and using comparisons, obviously like my physical comparison as well, in order to determine who the 2 donors may be in the mixture.
Now, in StarMix, you would have run that sample as a 2-person mixture, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. You could have run it as a 3-person mixture, correct?
If there was any indication that there were 3 people in the mixture, then I would have run it as 3 people in StarMix.
And in fact, in your notes, and if you need to refer back to them to refresh your memory, you specifically discussed this with your supervisors.
I don't recall.
Page 3. Would looking at your report and your correspondence refresh your memory as to your conversations with your supervisor?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Go ahead and look at page 3 of the correspondence and see if that refreshes your memory.
Yes, I did speak with both my supervisor and the technical leader.
And you had indicated after speaking with them, you noted that, well, does that refresh your memory, first of all?
Yes, it does.
All right. And you put, I was thinking I want to keep my original conclusion that it's a mixture of 2 and just report the inclusion of the son. Although with the information that they're all related, that could mean it should have been 3. Even without indications of 3, what do you think? And you're talking with your supervisor.
Correct.
You're also advising her that you had called it and run it as a mixture of 2.
Yes.
All right. And after you spoke with your supervisor, a decision was made not to run it in StarMix as a 3-person mixture.
Yes.
Okay, this defense attorney, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't know why, but she's got this like condescending tone to her. Like, is everything like she's got that really like mommy like talk, like she's talking to a 2-year-old. It's just wild to me. Is it? You know. Anyways, but her damn tone is crazy.
I decided that my original decision and conclusion that it was a mixture of 2 donors was accurate, even despite there being 3 people seeming to be included into the mixture.
And there's the capability in StarMix to change the scenarios for the program. In other words, run it as a 3-person mixture.
I could have run it as a 3-person mixture, but I did not choose.
Okay, I don't know what just happened, but it just took me off the internet. So that was weird. Okay, this is almost over though. I hope I'm back to the right place.
Well, we were saying it is greater than 700 billion, and I do have the actual statistical numbers in my case file.
Right. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that on the Griffin trigger and go through that. All right. So now, did you use star mix with item 7?
Yes, I did.
Please tell the jury what star mix is.
So StarMix is our computer software program. It's essentially a calculator. It helps me separate out the contributors to a mixture, so the people that are in a mixture, and it also helps me calculate my statistics.
Okay. Back to item 7. You then make a determination after having a mixture consistent with 2. You have identified both male basses. Now you end up getting a buckle for Jayla Bass, and she's included as well with a statistic of 25,000.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And Mr. Cherry had said to you originally, you didn't find Shirley's DNA, but you actually couldn't include her, nor could you exclude her.
That is correct. It was too low of a statistic for me to make any determination whether she could be included or excluded.
So she certainly then cannot be excluded, correct?
She cannot be either included or excluded.
Not being able to make any determination as to Shirley Bass could be from a combo.
You thought you were tricky there, defense attorney. You thought you were a little you thought you were a little slick with that question. So therefore she couldn't be excluded. No, this girl ain't off her rocker. She's gonna tell you, no, you can't be included or excluded. She is not gonna waver. And hey, that's fine. That's fine. But prove to me he's the dude.
That the information is limited and the fact the parties were related, correct?
Correct. So for that profile, there was a little bit of information missing out of it. It was a more low level, a little bit less DNA that was in it, as well as because the mother, of course, would be related to the children with half of her DNA being given to the children. Of course, that would also impact the comparison. It may look like some of her DNA types are in the profile, even if maybe they wouldn't be normally.
Okay. Now, before you did the additional statistics, and you did that at the request of Mr. Terry.
Correct, I did speak with him.
And this is again we're talking just about item 7, where now you have a third contributor, correct?
And I have 2 contributors, or I'm sorry, 2 donors to that mixture, where 3 people have been included too.
All right. Now, before you did the additional statistics for Mr. Terry, did you discuss this mixture of 2 contributors with your supervisors?
Yes, I did. I discussed with my
I went a
supervisor
little too far,
and
my
also our
bad.
technical leader about how to go about using StarMix and using comparisons, obviously like my physical comparison as well, in order to determine who the 2 donors may be in the mixture.
Now, in StarMix, you would have run that sample as a 2-person mixture, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. You could have run it as a 3-person mixture, correct?
If there was any indication that there were 3 people in the mixture, then I would have run it as 3 people in StarMix.
And in fact, in your notes, and if you need to refer back to them to refresh your memory, you specifically discussed this with your supervisors.
I don't recall.
Page, Would looking at your report and your correspondence refresh your memory as to your conversations with your supervisor?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Go ahead and look at page 3 of the correspondence and see if that refreshes your memory.
Yes, I did speak with both my supervisor and the technical leader.
And you had indicated after speaking with them, you noted that, well, does that refresh your memory, first of all?
Yes, it does.
All right. And you put, I was thinking I want to keep my original conclusion that it's a mixture of 2 and just report the inclusion of the son. Although with the information that they're all related, that could mean it should have been 3. Even without indications of 3, what do you think? And you're talking with your supervisor.
Correct.
You're also advising her that you had called it and run it as a mixture of 2.
Yes.
All right. And after you spoke with your supervisor, a decision was made not to run it in StarMix as a 3-person mixture.
Yes, I decided that my original decision and conclusion that it was a mixture of 2 donors was accurate, even despite there being 3 people seeming to be included into the mixture.
And there's the capability in StarMix to change the scenarios for the program. In other words, run it as a 3-person mixture.
I could have run it as a 3-person mixture.
Wow. So you could have reran it just to possibly see what you got. You couldn't have done that. Anyways. Okay, it's not her fault. She can only test what she.
Sure, but I did not choose to do that in this case because it was consistent with a 2-person mixture.
You could have, but you didn't, right?
Correct. It was not necessary in this case because my original conclusion of being 2 donors was accurate.
Looks like you did have a little bit of question about it as we just reviewed and talked with your supervisor though.
Of course, if 3 people are included to a 2-person mixture, it's going to cause a little confusion. And I'm going to go back and look at that original mixture and verify that my initial thought of it being 2 donors does still make sense.
Now, I wanted to ask you, when you gave Mr. Terry the statistics in this case, and that's like the 1 in 700 billion, and it said unrelated individuals, correct?
Well, that is how our statistics are set up, yes.
Now, is there any way to develop a statistical analysis for related people?
The StarMix does have that capability. However, we have not validated that at our laboratory.
So it does exist. There is a way to develop statistical analysis from related people, but your FDLE office does not do it.
Correct. The reasoning we have chosen to validate StarMix and use it in this specific way and not use it in comparisons to related people is because it uses census data. And after we would validate it, the census data would already be out of date. So it would actually be a less accurate calculation. It wouldn't be as accurate a calculation or as accurate a likelihood ratio, which is our statistic.
So FDLE does not have the StarMix program validated to take related individuals into account.
I am able to, of course, take related individuals into account. I know that people are related in this case, but that has no bearing on the statistical calculation and how it's calculated. It's going to be calculated the same way every time.
Well, all I asked you about StarMix, right? So StarMix is not validated at FDLE to take related individuals into account, correct?
Correct.
Right. This is a little bit different of a case than you usually have, right? Because of the related people?
Yes, it made it a little bit more complicated.
Okay. And in fact, you called it previously, it's a rare kind of case.
Yes, I would say that.
Right. All right. In terms of, and we are still on item 7, swabs from magazine base, where you have included both Jermaine Bass's. I wanted to ask you.
Hell, it's complicated for me because I still don't have any answers. I mean, shoot. I can understand. She was just running the DNA. Man. Wow, this case is wild.
You what the actual statistic you have, and you said you had it in your notes. If it will refresh your memory, please look at it. For the son, Jermaine Bass, what is the actual statistic for item number 7, swabs from magazine base?
Sure. So for the son, the swabs from the magazine base.
Can you move?
He was included to 310 trillion.
That was not very good at math. Is 310 trillion more than 700 billion?
Yes, it is, which is why we state our statistic as greater than 700 billion.
Okay, your kind of cap that you put in.
Yes.
FDLE. Okay. All right. Now, item 8 then, finally, again, that's the swab from the grip and trigger, correct?
Yes.
It's going to kind of be a little bit consistent with the fact that it's a mixture consistent with 2 donors, according to you, and you have included both Jermaine Bass's, the son and Jermaine Bass Jr.
Yes, both were included as possible contributors.
And the statistical analysis for both of the Bass males is that greater than 700 billion.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, specifically on item 8, though, you were able to exclude Shirley Bass, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay. That is different from item number 7, where you couldn't include or exclude her.
That is correct, and that's because the swabs from the magazine-based that mixture had a little bit less information in it, whereas for the swabs from the grip and trigger, there was a lot more information, nearly complete information at all of the 21 areas.
And for item 8, Shirley being excluded, that does not mean she did not touch that item, correct?
I cannot determine what activities may have occurred.
Yeah. Same thing with Jayla Bass. She is excluded, correct, from item 8?
Correct.
Okay. You cannot say she did not touch that firearm, correct?
I cannot tell you what activities may have occurred, only what my DNA results show.
Exactly. You can only testify to the DNA results that were found.
That is correct.
Now, in terms of the son, Jermaine Bass, could you give us the statistical analysis now for the grip and trigger item 8?
Sure. So the number calculated for item 8 was he was included to 640 quintillion.
How many zeros are in quintillion?
So 1 quintillion has 20 zeros.
20 zeros?
Yes.
Okay. So it is way above the cap that FDLE uses, greater than 700 billion.
Yes, it is.
Okay. May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Weinstein. I say that?
Weinstein.
Weinstein. Thank you.
Anything else from the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you can get the step down, ma'am. Thank you. She released from her subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
How
All right,
many
so we're going
zeros?
to take our lunch break.
I don't
Same
know.
admonitions.
A
I
lot.
will see you back here at 1:45.
See if they say anything else before they go to lunch, and then I am out of here because I'm gonna be doing a double stream tomorrow. I'm gonna do part 2 or day 2 part 2 and day 3 part 1 tomorrow. and then Friday I'll do day 4. Well, so in the morning I'm going to do part 2 day 2 and then part 3 day 1, and then I'll come back at night and do part 4 on day 4. See, he's wiping his glasses. I mean, you can tell he's going through it. This dude going through it. I could only imagine. The DNA wasn't clear. Nothing was freaking clear, man. Nothing. Are they going to go back on record or what? What's going on? You can't talk to him. Sorry, can't talk to him, lady. Okay, well, I guess that answered my question. Thanks. Whatever you call it. So, yeah. So tomorrow, let me make myself big again. So tomorrow, yes, I am gonna all right, Kevin, hopefully tomorrow we'll have more answers. But as far as we know, no. There's no answers. We have all these questions. I want to just jump through the screen. You know, I mean, man. Okay, DNA didn't give me any answers. They didn't check no gunshot residue, which is crazy. What kind of detectives are these? But then again, it's Florida, and you know, Florida are lazy cops. But I appreciate everyone that came in, whether you came in for 5 seconds, of course, all the ones that, you know, Kevin, I appreciate you. You know that. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for supporting me. You always have supported me, and I appreciate it so much. Freaky C, thank you for coming in. Daniel, thank you. I appreciate all the support I can get because, you know, I am trying to get to that YouTube shmoney, you know, give me the money. Show me the money, YouTube. And I love court cases. Like I said, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I don't think I could lie. That would be hard for me. I don't think I could definitively charge somebody if I don't know that they're guilty. Even I just don't know if I could. And I wanted to be a CSI tech, but you know, blood and guts, not my forte. But I love this stuff. I absolutely love this stuff. I just think more people should hold the state to the standard. Prove your damn case. Prove your damn case. So, all right. I will see you tomorrow night. Everybody stay blessed. And, you know, your loved ones and people you care about, let them know that you love and care about them, because tomorrow's never promised. And accidents happen. Apparently right now there's a big accident in this case. Yeah. Truly right now I could only convict him on the child abuse charges. I couldn't do anything else, but then I'd have to charge her too. So you can't do one without the other. They both were in the house. Okay. All right, everybody stay blessed and have a good night. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Turn me up, AV.
Like the spotlight, recognize me showing love, then got my grind right. Ain't never since day one the love been on side. And since you got my back, I got your back for life. Yeah, pretty honesty, know just what it is, I got it on me. And you hold me down, you like my homie. Just know I got you down, just what it gon' be. Definition of bestie, definition of friendship, definition of rider, definition relentless. She's a strong woman. She's a sweet lady, she's a great mother, let your pain get achy. Yeah, I made that girl on YouTube, she never dims my light or put me in her dark mood. And I thank you, you appreciate, you're my favorite girl on YouTube, and I can't fake it. Who still got faith in me, make me feel like big, DJ Khaled voice, pretty hot. Who still got faith in me, make me feel like big, DJ Khaled voice, pretty hot. Met Lil Shawty on this show called BDP, know what I'm talking about? Shit, we been cool ever since, my nigga, know what I'm talking about? Put your eyes on me, like the spotlight, recognize me showing love, then got my grind right. Ain't never since day one the love been on side. And since you got my back, I got your back for life. Yeah, pretty honesty, know just what it is, I got it on